Tipp today in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. Won't cost you if you'd like to make a call to us. And Leanne is producing today. Coming up on the show this morning, could the GAA play a role in alleviating the housing crisis? Deputy Seamus Healy calls on the government to acknowledge the cost of living crisis. We'll be hearing from Cllr Liam Browne, who is left frustrated by Ireland's healthcare system. We'll also go live to the IFA protest at the Bord Bia building in Dublin. My old friend and musician Brazel will be with us with some tales from the road, and our relationship expert Susan O'Donoghue will be live in studio. So all of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tippfm.com. Now, just to remind you about our fantastic competition, we've teamed up, as you know, at this point, with Jack Doyle's Irish Pub and Restaurant in Budapest to give you the chance to spend St. Patrick's weekend in that lovely city. You and a friend will enjoy flights and luxury accommodation, plus the best of what the city has to offer. Sightseeing, cruise on the Danube, and a night of dinner and drinks at Jack Doyle's, and its Irish hospitality and its best in the heart of Hungary. You'll stay at the Dorothea Hotel, and that's located right in the city centre. So to enter, all you have to do is listen out for the song Budapest by George Ezra. We'll be playing it quite a few times between now and February 12th. And when you hear the song, all you have to do at that point is text Budapest along with your name and your details to 083 311 3311. We'll select 10 finalists, and the winner will be announced on this very programme on this coming Friday. So celebrate St. Patrick's weekend in style with Jack Doyle's Irish Pub and Restaurant in Budapest, and of course your favourite radio station, Tipp FM. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers today. The Irish Times is dominated by a wonderful photograph. I have to say, it really is an award-winning photograph. It's a picture of jockey Danny Gilligan with Weston Together, the horse, in the parade ring after winning the Gibneys of Malahide handicap hurdle at Navan. But it's just, they're both the horse and himself covered in muck, but a great shot indeed. The lead story on the Times today: UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer was battling to save his premiership last night following the resignation of his closest aide, Corkman Morgan McSweeney. Also on the Times today, we're reading that the government's financial contributions to Ukraine are well below the amount of support provided by most other European Union states, including countries with smaller economies than Ireland. That's according to the Department of Foreign Affairs top civil servant. The Irish Examiner, and again a very good photograph of the cycle star Fergal Gehan at the Sydney Opera House as well. Marvellous photograph on the front of the Examiner as well today. Their lead story: first-time home buyers are often overbidding and paying over the odds because of open auctions preferred by auctioneers and online platforms. Also reading today that mini cabinets, the ability to levy an overnight tax on tourists, and the ability to consider local property tax variations of up to 50% are among a number of potential changes to local democracy which have been shared with councillors. The Daily Mail, and the lead story on the Mail today: Galway County Council has racked up legal bills in the region of €500,000 for repeatedly failing to comply with a court order to hand over documents relating to a stalled housing development. And finally, the Indo, and it's dominated by a photograph of Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, the Cork-born Morgan McSweeney, and they're telling us in their lead story that the GAA is locked in several legal disputes over the alleged misdesignation of properties near Croke Park as residential, leaving the association liable for a tax that targets idle land. So that's a look at what's making headlines today. If you'd like to make comment on any of that, we'd be glad to hear from you. And once again, you can text and WhatsApp 083 311 Now, the lack of housing right across the country continues to be a major issue here, and many of our young people indeed choosing to immigrate because of that. Well, frequent contributor to the show, Maurice Leamy, was in touch with us recently, and he has an idea that may help to alleviate that. He joins me now. Maurice, good morning to you.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Lovely to talk to you today. You think the GAA could have a role in alleviating the housing difficulties around the country?
I do, Fran, because for a very simple reason, they're in every townland, crossroad, parish throughout the country. You know, they know all the areas, they know the issues that are happening there. They see it firsthand themselves, Fran, in relation to what's happened to our rural communities, our villages, Fran. With the policies of this government and previous governments who just want all the centralisation to go into urban areas. You know, there's schools, Fran, that don't have enough children going to them. There's GA teams at underage level, can't field teams. You know, even talking to our old man in Tipperary there last week, he says, even maybe not so much now, but he sees it as a massive issue in 10 years' time. But in other counties, it's a big issue, Fran, a big issue.
And when you say the GA could help with this, what exactly have you in mind, Maurice?
Well, I suppose it's just like, I'll give a little example there, Fran. First off, up there in Drumkeen there, in the last, I think it's only in the last year or so, Cllr village, the last pub was just closed down, and this was a village now, I think, that at its height had maybe 7 pubs and maybe 8 shops.
Yeah.
So they were going to be left with no shop, no pub, and there was nothing going to happen. So the community got together, and what they did was I think 26 people bought shares in it, in this pub and shop, and they got it going. Now they have housing there, Fran, as well, and daycare for the elderly. They're after getting involved in that. They're after providing a recycling facility. There's a butcher after being brought out from Limerick City now that's working there in the village. So this is all possible, Fran, with a bit of joined up thinking. And the GA are brilliant at that. Local clubs are brilliant at that, Fran. You know, like that's how they start themselves. You know, buying a field, making a pitch, getting a club house built, getting a gym built. You know, most of it is just kind of people coming together and helping out, you know, not for a profit at the end of the day, but just having something there for the community, for the locality. And that's what, you know, the housing market, that could be brought in as well with the GA helping like that, Fran.
Yeah, there's some precedent for it, Maurice, because I know that the GAA in Cork, certainly, they're I think planning permission might have been granted, in fact, for homes there on land owned by the GAA, and I think they're doing something similar in Cllr, as far as I know. The only difficulty I would see is the GAA would have the same planning issues as any of the rest of us, and it can be very difficult to get planning to build in rural areas. Well,
that's the problem, Fran. That's the problem. You know, let's say even for farmers' children, Fran, or any child in a locality that wants to build. You know, there's so much red tape involved now. It's ridiculous, Fran. They just want everyone to be brought into towns and cities, Fran, and that's not going to. That's what's killing rural Ireland, Fran. That's what's killing rural Ireland. And like I say, the GAA, you know, there could be like a bit of joined up thinking, Fran. You know, if they got involved in building the houses, Fran, like there is a Danish model where cooperative housing. Now, I'm not too sure we'll go down that road, but like what happens there, Fran, is you cut out the developer, you cut out the real estate agent, so straight away you're probably somewhere around 40% of a saving, Fran. Do you know what I mean? And you know, just as I say, people would be able to then affordability, Fran. And the main thing, Fran, when I sent you the emails was, you know, I think Irish youngsters that have gone abroad, Fran, because they had to go abroad.
Yeah.
You know, give them a chance to come back, Fran. Affordable housing. Not that they get the housing for free, Fran. Like, a lot of the GA clubs, Fran, have land that is suitable for building, you know. And, you know, even if there was 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever houses built, Fran, just the clubs to come together, build the houses, as I say, not for a profit, but and give the young diaspora a chance to come home, Fran, and, you know, get a chance to have a house over their head. Because at the moment, Fran, the average mortgage in 2026 for young couples, do you know what it is, Fran?
I dread to think, but what is it, Morris?
It's $500,000.
$500,000? Wow.
$500,000 is the average mortgage in 2026, Fran, for building a house.
Yeah, now that's probably driven up by the huge costs in the major cities, I suppose, is it? Is that what's driving it?
But what's happening there is, Fran, they have to put it out over 35 years. Yeah. So by the time that is paid off, Fran, there's somewhere between $850,000 and $900,000 paid back to the bank. You know, that's where the other thing that could happen there, Fran, rather than using the banks, the credit unions, the local cooperative credit unions for community involvement, you know, put in your certain amount of money and be able to draw down on what's going in and let it circle around the community. That kind of joined up thinking, Fran. The local councils could maybe, you know, allocate a certain amount of land themselves for this initiative as well, because it needs, like, children, Fran, will say there's nearly 440,000 children. Well, when I say children, I'm talking about young adults up to the age of 35 living with their parents.
Yeah, sure.
They can't afford to build a house. If they can afford to build a house, Fran, they can't afford to have children. Because having a child or two children, Fran, is like the same as paying back a mortgage every month. Yeah,
and we discussed the drop in the birth rate recently on the programme as well. So it all plays into each other, I suppose, does it, Morris?
It all plays into each other, and it's just given as I say, and as I say, Fran, I'm not asking for houses to be built now to house the third world. I'm asking for the houses to be built to bring back our own Irish children that have gone abroad, Fran, that want to come back but can't afford to come back because they know they won't be able to put a roof over their heads. That's where I'm coming from, Fran. I'm not saying there should be a criteria that they're all Class GA hurlers or the mother and father are able to solo a ball down the field at 20 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour and score over each arm. I'm not saying that to obviously be brilliant if they could, but what I'm saying is give the Irish diaspora that went abroad through no fault of their own. I see Seamus Morris posted yesterday, Fran, about the number of Irish nurses and doctors and medical people in general that have, you know, physiotherapists and all the rest of it that have gone to Australia because they've no choice, because they can't get permanent contracts in this country, Fran. In 2019, Fran, the amount of Irish doctors in Australia was 1,553. Today, Fran, is 2,722.
So what's that saying to you?
Well, the nurses are doubled as well. The nurses have gone from 1,700 to 3,300. These are people, Fran, that can't get work here in this country. They can't get permanent positions. Definitely the nurses can't. They're not offered.
Yeah, but still we're being told unless we bring in people from overseas, we can't fill the vacancies in our hospitals. So what's... And I know that we're going to talk to Liam Browne about this in a little while, but what do you make of that? What is that about?
Well, I saw an article from the Irish Medical Journal, Fran. The amount of money that is spent, and I'm talking billions, Fran, billions, bringing in these agency nurses. They have to be trained, Fran. They have to be housed. They say that the main thing is the patient care, Fran. And I don't want to come across wrong here now, but that is foremost. That should be foremost in everyone's mind. And the Irish Medical Journal, Fran, seem to think that it's not a good model.
Well, the model that we have presently is that
we're exporting our brightest and our best, Fran.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll even put it like this, Fran. Even the doctors that are coming in, I know we're gone away from the housing thing, but it's the same. It all fits in, Fran, because these are Irish diaspora that had to go abroad, Fran, through no fault of their own, because they weren't getting permanent positions in Irish hospitals, Fran. You heard Alan Kelly on there one day. He talked out of both sides of his mouth. One saying that we need these nurses coming in and we need all these foreign people coming in to work in our health service. And at the same time, he was able to tell us about an Irish girl, fully qualified, but wasn't able to get on the panel.
Right, but in fairness, what he said is true. Though. We do need the people coming in now. The people who are leaving, that's a whole other discussion. But
if they were kept, if we keep our
we
own
need to keep them. Okay, and it's a very good point as well.
They aren't doing it. They don't want to pay the pensions.
All right, let me just go back to what you were saying about the GAA, because I know in some community developments, Morris, like housing and sports facility projects in Northern Ireland with Ulster GAA involvement, GAA clubs have partnered with housing associations and councils to create homes alongside playing in community spaces. So as I said, there is precedent for this, but we need to see more of it.
We need to see, and more so, Fran, in rural Ireland. Like, that's my point.
Yeah.
There's no point in putting them into estates, Fran, because when you go into it, like I talked to one of the secretaries there in Limerick there last week, in Limerick GA, County GA, and like I said, what are you doing to counteract, not being able to field underage teams? Well, we're going to schools, and I said, but if the children aren't in the schools, what's going to happen? And he said, yeah, but sure, what can we do? And I said, and he said, well, we're also going to new estates. And I said, how are you finding that? Well, he says, we're it's a battle, because the children in those estates, they're more into wanting to play soccer, and there's the junior league in Limerick, and they're more into that kind of thing, you know what I mean? And maybe if you showed them a hurley, they'd probably think there's something for stirring soup, like, rather than playing a game with, you know what I mean? Like, so that's the thing, Fran. It's bringing life back to rural Ireland, Fran. And not make it so difficult for local people and local children, especially, Fran, to get planning.
Yeah, but that's going to continue on, Morris, because those rules and regulations are in place, and they're all based on environmental issues and the like. So that's not going to change. I can't say this.
Well, I do laugh at the environmental issues, Fran. When you talk about environmental issues and one-off housing and all the rest of it, and there could be
septic tanks and
septic tanks. Where's the issue with septic tanks, Fran? When you had the town of Nina, Fran, and down in Ballycommon, and the wastewater treatment plant, and same as here in the mines, Fran, there was no upgrade to the silver mines treatment plant since the 50s or 60s, Fran, and there's probably the weight of 70 houses gone in there since, Fran. So, like, I do laugh at this, an issue with pollution and one-off housing, Fran. It's a joke.
Right, but don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying to you that these regulations are in place, Morris, and how do you get past that then?
They need, as I said from the start, Fran, there needs to be a bit of joined up thinking, Fran, and the biggest issue, Fran, as I say at the moment, is housing. Country children not being able to live in their locality, and they all want to live in their locality, Fran. Well, I was at a match at the weekend, Fran, and all the youngsters that were there, and they're just loving it, and that's the tradition, Fran. We seem to be on a pathway here in Ireland to kill out any of our traditions, any of our culture.
Well, hopefully that's not the case. Before I let you go, I know you wanted to talk about something else you wanted to do for Anne Williamson and that.
Oh, I do, the creator, yes.
Will you tell me about that? Yeah,
she was on last year, Richie. She had
she looks after horses, of course.
She has a horse sanctuary, shelter below, and I won't call him what I want to call him, but anyway, they robbed the horse box, and they've done worse than that even. They robbed the neighbour's mare and left a little crater of a foal inside in the field, crying, looking for its mother, and went off, and of course the mare was never found afterwards. Anyway, after listening to her story, I contacted her to tell her I'd give her a few bales of haylage, and I promised all this way through during the winter that I was going to take him down. Anyway, I'm lambing at the moment, friend. I can't leave the flipping place.
Right.
So if there's anyone moving from Nina down to Mullinahone with a flat trailer or a flat lorry or whatever, and just that they might be doing it in the next few weeks, I load them here, and I'm sure, look,
that's very kind of you. It's called My Lovely Horse Rescue, of course, is what
it probably is.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm lambing at the moment, friend. I actually think, friend, there should be a 24-hour helpline set up for sheep farmers, friend, because the amount of crap we have to deal with between yours going on their back. I think lads should be able to talk to therapists and counsellors any hour of the day. Yours going on their back, breaking out, getting stuck in briars.
Oh, God.
Oh, Jesus, I'm telling you.
Well, to a non-farmer like me, that sounds like a nightmare. You look after yourself, Morris, and thanks very much for coming on with us. Thanks. Good morning to you. Bye. Morris Leamy speaking to us there. We'll take a break. We're back with more Tipp today in just a few moments.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Welcome back to Tipp Today. Now, last week, Tipperary's Independent Deputy Seamus Healy brought forward a motion in the Dáil that a cost of living crisis does exist in Ireland. He says the prices have increased by 23.5% in the last 5 years. Food prices have increased by 5% in the last year alone. He joins me now. Good morning to you, Seamus.
Morning, friend.
Thanks for your time this morning. Most people would agree with you, Seamus. There is a serious cost of living crisis in Ireland. You say that it's firmly because of government actions. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's basically because two things, I suppose, government action and government inaction. And the budget of 2026 was brought in last October. Did away with all the energy credits and in effect reduced the income of the lowest earners and the lowest income earners.
These are the one-off payments, Seamus.
These are all the one-off payments by the Disability Federation of Ireland and the Irish Wheelchair Association have suggested that the figure is in the region of €1,400, which they would have lost, and people like them and of similar income would have lost in budget 2026. And on top of that, of course, the government has allowed prices to rise, without tackling them. As you said yourself, food prices up by 5%. There's not a day goes by now that the family shop has increased. And in fact, over the last 3 years, the family shop has increased by about €2,000 annually. Energy prices, electricity and gas. Electricity is one of the highest in Europe, 24% higher than the European average, and gas prices have doubled over the last few years. So all that has come together to create what is effectively a very serious cost of living crisis for large numbers of people, both middle-income earners and low-income earners, right across the country. And of course, the other element in all this is the whole question of rents, private rented accommodation in particular, and housing, the cost of housing. And that has been exacerbated and will be exacerbated further now by the introduction of the new tenancy bill by Minister James Browne last week. And that's going to increase the cost of private rented accommodation by anything up to $3,000 to $3,500 per year, and that will immediately kick in for new tenancies from the 1st of March, but it will over the next 3 years will kick in for all tenancies. So within the next 3 years, all tenancies will be paying unaffordable rents as it is, but they'll be absolutely astronomical, extortionate, in fact, within 3 years.
Yeah, in rebuttal to you, I presume the government would point out, 28.9 billion they're going to spend this year, Seamus, on social protection. The national minimum wage went up from 10 to, what is it now, €14 plus an hour. They'll talk to you about main social welfare payments went up by €10 a week for 2026 as well. So they would claim that they're doing a lot to alleviate the cost of living crisis.
They're certainly claiming in response to this motion what I put forward was basically they regurgitated the various increases in the budget, but they didn't at all refer to the various reductions in the budget. They suggested that some of these things would be welcome and should be done, but we can't do them now. They suggested that some of them of these payments are, in their view, unsustainable. Now, that view is complete and absolute nonsense. because the budget, 2026 budget, projects a budget surplus for 2026 of 5.1 billion euros. And actually, the budget surplus for the last 3 years, that's 25, 24 and 23, is 42.2 billion euros of a surplus.
Yes.
And also, of course, they have the two funds, the Future Ireland Fund and the Infrastructure and Nature Fund and Climate Fund. Those funds together have in them currently a figure of 20 billion euros. So the claim that any payments, any once-off payments are unsubstantiable is complete and absolute nonsense.
But the government is always criticised, though, about not being prudent enough where spending is concerned, and they said themselves those one-off payments that you're referring to, Seamus, that just we couldn't continue with that.
Well, friend, the fact of the matter is, as I just said, we're running a budget surplus this year of 5.1 billion. We ran in the last 42.2 billion. Now, if that's not enough, recent figures only produced the week before last show us that 12 Irish billionaires own income and assets of more than 66% of the Irish population. And I've suggested in this motion and previously that there should be a wealth tax on those very, very rich individuals. And so Oxfam Ireland, who produced that report, have suggested that and recommended that for a number of years. But I would also say this, that in the last budget, while on the one hand they stopped all the one-off payments to people who are under huge pressure financially, who are effectively living from hand to mouth and from day to day. In that budget, they gave away almost 700 million euros to burger barons and a similar figure to big developers. So on the one hand, they were supporting people who are very rich and very powerful, and on the other hand, they were decreasing the income of the poorest 20% of the population. Poorest 20% of the population, the Parliamentary Budget Office, this is the government's own office, have said that the poorest 20% of the population will lose 4.15% of their income in 2026. So I think the figures speak for themselves. There's a serious cost of living crisis out there. It needs to be tackled. This motion of mine is the first step in that, and it's the first step actually in the launch of the Affordable Irish campaign, Affordable Ireland campaign, which is supported by all the opposition parties, by the Irish Wheelchair Association, by the Disability Federation of Ireland, the National Women's Council, the Unite the Trade Union, the Dublin Council of Trade Unions, and a whole series of other civic society organisations. And that campaign, as I said, this is the first step in that, and the public launch of the campaign will be a protest in Dublin on the 28th of February.
Right, but for that to be effective, Seamus, you'd have to have acknowledgement from the government that there is a problem. But I mean, the government is saying to you, we've already spent a lot on social welfare, we've increased wages, we're helping with the energy costs, families are supported.
You're quite right, Fran. That is what the government is saying, and I think it's shameful that they're saying that. But the fact of the matter is that the government aren't going to move because Seamus Healy put down private members' motion, but the government can be forced to move by public pressure, by feet on the ground, and that's what this Affordable Ireland campaign intends to do. And as I said, there is very significant cross-party and cross-society support for this campaign. And the focus of the first protest on the 28th of February is for the introduction of an emergency winter payment, and that's something that the Irish Wheelchair Association in particular have been recommending for quite some time now. So this is, as I said, it's the start of a campaign. I believe the government can be defeated on this and will be defeated on it. I think there's a lot of public pressure out there on this issue, and it's like everything. You have to start somewhere. This is the initial steps in that campaign, and I believe we will be successful.
With all of your experience experience around health issues, Seamus. Could I ask you something, mainly because we're discussing it in just a few moments' time, but the notion that we have to bring in so many people from overseas to fill vacancies in the health service, and we seem to be losing more and more of our own people who have trained either as nurses or doctors to overseas. What are your thoughts on that, Seamus?
Well, Fran, this comes back to largely something I've mentioned earlier. The cost of housing by way of private renting and by way of purchase. Now, the fact of the matter now is that a nurse, a young doctor, a guard, a teacher, a middle grade civil servant are not in a position to buy a house in this country at the minute, because the cost of housing is absolutely astronomical, and the cost of renting privately is in Dublin now. It's in excess of €2,100 per month, and that's going to increase because of this bill that James Browne, the Fianna Fáil minister, has brought in last week. Now, that is forcing immigration, and I've just read yesterday, I think it was in the Sunday Independent, the numbers of Irish professionals who have emigrated to Australia over the last few years has skyrocketed. I think the figure for nurses alone was something like 3,500. Yeah. For doctors, I think it's very close to 2,000, and I think the full figure was something like 8,000. So, I mean, if you can't provide reasonable housing at a reasonable cost, both by way of purchase and rental for young people, then they're not going to stay in this country.
But what I don't understand, and maybe you could help me with this, Seamus, is the people that we bring in, and as I said, we need them very badly to fill these posts. They have to live somewhere as well, and they have to be looked after in terms of rental and housing and the like. So what am I missing here?
Well, as I say, the big thing is that the cost of living for young people in particular now, and young families in particular, is such that one of the options, and one of the very serious options they have to consider is emigration. Now, there's substantial numbers of non-Irish people working in the health service and in hospitality, and it's attractive to those people because even the rates of pay, which may not be significant from an Irish point of view, is in fact significant from the countries from which they come. So it's an improvement in circumstances for them. They obviously get an experience. Some of them will want to go home after they get that experience. So there's a double edge on that.
Are we paying the people coming in? Are we paying them less than we would pay Irish people who would take up these posts?
Well, a lot, not in the case of nurses or doctors. But certainly in the case of people who are coming in, who are employed in hospitality and in support services generally, they are much better paid. Let's put it this way: they're much better paid than they would be in their own countries. And generally speaking, they fill roles that are less attractive to Irish workers. And you can see that right across hospitality and all the various support services.
All right, Seamus, it's a conversation we're going to continue this morning, but good to talk to you this morning. Thanks for your time, Seamus. Thank you. Good morning to you. Good morning. Bye-bye to you. No, that's Deputy Seamus Healy speaking to us this morning. We'll take a break and we'll continue with that particular conversation in just a few moments.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
And you're very welcome back. Now, just before the break there, we were speaking to Deputy Seamus Healy about several different topics, but health came up. And Councillor Liam Browne is with me in studio. Good morning to you, Liam.
Good morning, Frank, and good morning to the listeners.
Good to see you today. You took to social media to share your dismay, and I think you described it as dismay yourself, at the Irish health system. Will you tell me what aspect of it really you're referring to?
I did, Frank. That was a couple of weeks ago. I did it, but it's born out of frustration from probably a couple of years as to what's going on in the health service. I'm not happy with the way the health service is going as far as recruitment is concerned. And I know that some points I might make might sound pretty controversial and stuff, but that's the whole point of politics as far as I'm concerned, to have some uncomfortable conversations and get some answers out of it. There's a reality in the health service that, we are structurally not looking after it properly. And on the way in this morning, I listened to two of the listeners, listened about Morris and I listened to Seamus just beforehand, and they're touching off a part of the problem, but there's no point just touching off part of a problem unless we're going to sit down and have a proper discussion about it. Now, both of them mentioned something that Councillor Seamus Morris put up at the weekend, and I was delighted to see that Seamus put that up as well, because Seamus has been saying this along with myself as well. But we need to sit up and realise that we're actually exporting some of the best workers and some of the best young people in the country out of the country because they don't see a future in the country, and that's not good. From the point of view of the cost of those workers, we're spending hundreds of thousands of euros on training nurses, on training doctors, on training dentists, and then seeing them leave. Now, apart from the social problem of seeing young people leave, and apart from the emotional problem of families, seeing sons and daughters heading off across the world, sometimes for good, we have to sit down and say, the amount of money we're spending as a nation on training people just for them to emigrate because they don't see opportunities and don't see a future in the country, and also then to spend more money on bringing workers in to do the jobs that the people we've spent money on going away aren't available to do. That it's unsustainable economically as far as I'm concerned. It's a seriously bad model. It's something we don't talk about. There are other issues which I'll go into in a minute, but that's the first issue I'd like to say. If we're going to train them, we should be looking to retain them. Train and retain, but not spend the money to see people leave.
If we all agree that housing is at the core of this, the people who come in to do the work, and you point out yourself, we need them, they have to live somewhere as well. So they need housing, they need rental, they need all of the... So I don't... If we can do that for the people coming in, why are people leaving? I can't get my head around it fully.
Okay, the first controversial thing I'm going to say is we don't particularly need them. We need them because we've built up a system where we have no choice but to have them.
Yes.
The problem is, Fran, is we are persisting with that system. We need them now because we didn't put in enough training spaces in the past, but we're not putting in enough training spaces for the future either. This is the problem. Even if no foreign workers came into this country, we would have a problem filling the spaces because the population is rising at a level where we're not training enough doctors and nurses in the first place. So that's the first thing we need to address. It takes 600 points in the Leaving Cert to even consider getting into medical school. I don't think that's necessary. And I'll tell you why. People might say, we want the best and the brightest to be doctors and nurses. But the reality is it's not a good sign that you get an A in home economics, or it's not a good sign that you get A in ag science in your Leaving Cert that's going to make you a good doctor or nurse. There are an awful lot of people in an awful lot of other countries who wouldn't get the same sort of results, who make fine doctors and nurses. For a long time in Ireland, we had the apprentice system in nurses that we don't have anymore.
Absolutely,
and, that system produced the best nurses in the world.
Some amazing nurses, absolutely.
So,
yeah. But we all know why the points are so high is because there's so few places. That's really what it's about.
That's the point
it's not
I'm
about
making.
finding the brightest, the best.
That's what I'm saying. That's the structural problem we have in the first place. So that's the first thing first place we should start from, is to actually train more doctors and nurses and other healthcare workers, because we don't have enough. The second point is, you're correct about the housing. I'm boring you to tears. I'm boring every single person I meet to tears talking about housing. That is the root of a lot of the problems in Ireland. But you're saying we're bringing in foreign workers to Ireland while we're seeing our own workers leave, and those foreign workers need to be housed. They are being housed, Fran. They're being housed in basically dormitories. They're being housed in 8, 9, 10 to a house because they're here short term. We did it in England. I did it myself when I worked abroad. There's no intention to stay long term in the country, so there's no problem with living maybe 6, 8, 10 to a house. But an Irish worker who leaves wants to build a family. They're not going to live like that. They want to buy the house for themselves. We have a rental sector, and I see it in Cashel myself, and I see it across Tipperary, where houses are being rented, and there's 2 and 3 Southeast Asian families living in one house, and are quite happy to do it because it's only a stopgap for themselves to make money and then to go back. But the problem is the houses that there's 2 or 3 families living in for a short term is a house that maybe an Irish nurse or an Irish doctor may have considered living in long term and building up families. So that's part of the issue.
Yeah, there's another very important one. You were kind enough to send me that Jimmy Carr a video where he spoke about health. But one of the things he said in it, I hadn't even thought, the people coming here, they're coming from countries that also need them. I mean, it's not as if there's no sick people in these countries, or that, their health is much better. They badly need them in these countries, but we're taking them here.
That's another part of the issue. It's not ethical. It's not sustainable to do that. We cannot keep going out to what we call third world countries and taking their best and brightest out.
Because we can pay them more.
Because we can pay them more. I mean, it's an absolutely ridiculous cycle when you think about it, Fran. Australia, being a richer country than Ireland, are coming to Ireland and taking our best and brightest, and then to substitute it, we're going to India, we're going to Pakistan, we're going to the Philippines, and we're doing the same to them. Like, I was horrified last week. I'm not sure how much interest people take in European politics, but I was absolutely horrified last week to see Ursula von der Leyen sign an agreement with India, to increase the number of Indian workers, highly skilled Indian workers, into Europe, to give them visas, taking in not just healthcare workers, but taking in engineers, taking in software workers, taking in workers.
So we're taking their brightest and best.
So here we are in Europe, taking, going to those countries, taking their bright and best. And then, Fran, at the weekend, I seen, a girl from Cashel, and it's not an uncommon thing to see, young Irish people heading out to Calcutta, working for things like the Hope Foundation, Mother Teresa's Foundation. And here we are helping, unbelievably poor young Indian children, massive poverty in these countries, when at the same time, it's like throwing them a couple of crumbs while we're taking the loaf of bread off them. We're taking the people off them who should be building up their countries, who should be looking after those children in their own countries themselves, and we're doing the same to ours.
Why hasn't this been spoken about?
It's not been highlighted, Fran, because we're consistently going down the road of trying to be yellow packing jobs and trying to make jobs cheaper and stuff. Like, one of the biggest issues with the Irish healthcare workers going abroad is there's been a recruitment ban on in a lot of parts of the health service for the last couple of years, so you can't get a permanent job. Now, if you can't get a permanent job in Ireland, now you might be working for God knows how many years as a temporary staff member. You might be working as an agency staff member, and even an awful lot of Irish people now have no choice but to work for agencies. But you're not going to get a mortgage if you're not temporary. You're not going to be have the confidence to start a family if you're not temporary, if you're not permanent, because you don't know when you may be told, look, there's no job there for you next week. So it's causing those sort of problems. Like, the amount of money we spend, I'll go back to it again, the figures that Seamus put up, they're mind-boggling, but I think people need to hear them. It costs up to €300,000 over the lifetime of a doctor to be trained. It costs about between 90 and 120,000 to train a nurse. There's 2,800 doctors registered now in Australia from Ireland. There's 3,300 nurses. That's $1.5 billion spent on us training doctors to go to Australia. That's 650 million spent on us training
And those
nurses.
figures, is that what the taxpayer puts in?
That's the taxpayer cost. That's the cost of the Irish education system of training these people. And that's just Australia, Fran. We've the Australian figures. I don't have the figures for the ones gone to America. I don't have the figures the one gone to the UK, Canada.
Yeah.
Why are we spending billions upon billions educating young Irish people to get on boats?
And do you believe in this notion of an obligation on the people that we train here to stay here for either a period of time or?
I think we're going to have to face that, Fran. I genuinely think we do. But it's very hard to put an obligation on somebody to stay in this country. If they're in their mid-20s, if they're highly educated and they're living above in the box room of the house that they grow up in. I mean, we've got to face up to this. We're a growing population. We need more healthcare workers. We have a huge issue, Fran, in the ageing population and the care of older people. Pretty much all of that now has been subcontracted to agencies, to private companies, Fran. Whereas we used to have things like the county home. We used to have I'm going to be back into next week, Fran, complaining about the community nursing unit in Cashel. Yeah. There's still no movement on that whatsoever.
Which is incredible.
And we have an issue where Our Lady's may be closed in June. I mean, Our Lady's Hospital is supposed to close in June, and we still don't even know where we're going to build.
We know what's going to happen there. The licence is going to be...
But this is the problem. The licence is running out in June, and we still don't even know where we want to build a community nursing unit. So we're subcontracting the care of the elderly. We're subcontracting, care of hospital jobs, of nurse jobs, of doctors' jobs, of dental jobs, physiotherapy jobs, mental health jobs, by bringing people from outside. And another thing, Fran, and let's get completely controversial here while we're here at it. There is a pushback among some Irish people who don't want to be treated by people from outside Ireland because they feel they don't communicate with them properly. We don't have, we have issues with older people who have language issues with outside doctors. Like, we've got to be careful of that. It's not a nice thing to say. I'm going to be pushed back because I do know that the healthcare workers that come into these countries, they're doing their best. They're here. We need them. We need them at the moment. We have to have the conversations.
A lot of the people coming in are fantastic communicators, and they're fantastic at what they do, and people commend them all the time.
Yeah, absolutely, they do. But some don't.
But is part of the issue that whenever the conversation starts about immigration or people coming in, we conflate the idea of the people coming in for health care and hospitality care with people who are coming into the country illegally and all of that. Is that part of the issue why we won't even go near the conversation?
It is a big part of the issue, and I've no doubt there's people pulling their hair out now and calling me names on the radio, while at the same time there's other people saying, you're dead right, Liam. I want to say the same thing as you're saying, but I'm afraid that I'm going to be shouted at by the people who will call them racist. It's not racist to have a conversation. If anybody wants to come in and counter the argument in a debate, I'm quite happy to have it, because I think we have to have it. We have to stop conflating illegal immigration or economic migration or economic immigration with what's happening with, legal immigration.
Yes, it's a separate
issue, but it's still related. As you said, I listened to Morris this morning, talk about the GAA and talk about the denuding of rural areas. We had the GAA in at an SPC meeting last week at the council, and I'll send you on the report, Fran, but some of the stuff that's coming out of that report, it's frightening.
Like what?
The GAA at the moment, I'll give you a figure. At the moment in Ireland, 52% of children between 0 and 5 years of age are looked after by, are in the catchment area of 50 GAA clubs. There's over 2,000 GAA clubs in the country, but 25% of 0 to 5-year-olds are in the catchment area of only 50, because we're pushing people into towns. We're making the towns bigger. I understand why it's easier to deliver services to bigger towns, but it means we're not building up the Anacartes, we're not building up the Banchas, we're not building up the Kappa Whites, we're not building up the Aherlos, because we're pushing all the people into Cashel, and we're pushing all the people. And
this is all because of environmental regulation around one-off housing and all of that kind of thing.
Well, you see, I heard you say that it's all about environmental regulation. It's not all about environmental regulation. It's all about planning for ease of delivery of services. It's a lot easier.
Sure, from an infrastructure point of view.
It's an infrastructure problem. But we're urbanising Ireland to the point where, housing policy in this country is dedicated to urbanising the country and to actually making the villages smaller.
Right, now they'll tell you, notable increase in housing last year.
There's where, Fran? Where's the notable increase?
Well, what they're telling you is over 20% of a rise compared to 2024.
Yeah, over 20% of a rise. I'll tell you that in real figures, Fran. That's about 33,000 to 34,000 extra houses last year.
36,000.
36,000. Yeah. Oh, very good. How many extra people came into the country last year, Fran?
Yeah.
98,000.
Right.
98,000 extra people came into the country, and we built an extra 36,000 houses. So we're not even keeping up with the housing crisis. We had a housing crisis before last year. We had hundreds of thousands of people looking for houses last year that didn't have houses. We built 36,000 houses. We brought in 100,000 people. And we're going to do the same this year, and we're going to do the same year after and year after. It's unsustainable.
And to the core part of our conversation today, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? Is it all about being able to house the people who are leaving the country? Because I had a row with Micheál Martin on this programme one day over this, because he said the majority of people who go, they want adventure, they want a bit of excitement, they're going to explore the world, and that's why they're leaving. Says
a man who never left the country in his life. Says a man who was
he's constantly leaving the country.
Oh yeah, he is, and sometimes I wish he'd stay. But this is the sort of nonsense I listen to. I left the country, Fran. I emigrated. I worked abroad. I wanted to come home. I was quite happy to spend a couple of years abroad. I've quite a number of friends who are quite happy to go abroad. I have a daughter who is already speaking about going abroad, but only for a couple of years. If this idea that we're going for adventure, that's rubbish. An awful lot of those people, if you look at the figures in Australia, in 5 years, because I have them from 2019 to 2025, it's increasing. It's increased by 86%. It's getting bigger and bigger every year, because now we're finding that because some maybe in a doctor's class or a nurse's class has gone out there, there's somebody who in the next class has someone to go out to. We cannot keep exporting our young people. God above, friend, let's go back to the Eamon De Valera, and that was one of the things he said back in the 1950s, or Sean Lemass. We cannot keep exporting our youngsters like cattle. They are our biggest asset. They are what we're going to need for the future. There's no point talking about the here and now. We need to talk about the 15, the 20 years' time.
Let me talk to you about the here and now. What do we need to begin to do? I mean, there's plans there for, what is it, 300,000 houses before 2030, all of that. That's the target that's there. Is that a start?
Okay. Let's undercut that nonsense about the 300,000 houses. The 300,000 houses between now and 2030, first of all, won't be delivered. And, I've sat into council meetings, I've sat into meetings with people from the National Planning Framework, which said it's physically impossible to do it because we don't have the services to do it. We don't have the water services, we don't have the electrical services, we don't have the wastewater treatment services to do it. So, first of all, it's not going to be done. And you can bring Micheál Martin back in here, as you have done before, and he'll tell you what he's also done. We won't put year-by-year targets. Of course we won't, Micheál, because we know we're failing the year-by-year targets. But that's not even part of the problem. The other part of the problem is we hear the government say they are going to deliver 50,000 houses a year or 60,000 houses a year. The government are delivering practically zero houses. The houses are being delivered by private developers, and then 20% of the houses are taken off the private developers in Part 5 and they're used as social houses. So the government or the councils aren't building the houses, the private developers are. The problem with that model, Fran, is the private developer has to sell the other 80% of the houses, which means the private developer is not going to build in the Anacartes, the Banches, the small villages.
So you're saying to me you can't see anything presently happening that is going to change what we've been talking about?
I can actually see the policy decisions that we've made making them worse, and that's why I'm trying to get on local media like this, Fran. I'm heading off to a council meeting after this. We have a plenary meeting this morning. I'll bang the drum there again. We've got to sit down and structurally change our policies in how we deliver housing and how we deliver education and how we retain people in the country.
And I'm completely out of time, but just briefly, you heard Maurice this morning. He was talking about clubs like the organisations like the GAA playing some small part in alleviating this. Do you see anything in that?
Absolutely, yeah. That was one of the things we spoke about last week, and as I said, I'll drop in the report to you. I think we need to have organisations like the GAA take lead on this. We have approved housing bodies which provide housing. I think maybe the GAA should consider part of their arm getting involved in housing, because we're going to end up not paying 15 aside in a lot of places in a couple of years. They'll be down to 11 and 9 aside. Otherwise clubs will disappear. And the GAA spoke absolutely brilliantly at the meeting. They've got. So I want to try to meet one of the guys who really spoke passionately about keeping the GAA rooted in Irish rural towns and villages, in the Irish psyche. But I can tell you, the way we're going...
They've been very silent about the major social issues of our time, to be honest with you.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's the problem. They can be. But I'll tell you, Fran, and I'll leave you on this. If we don't address this, in 100 years' time, there'll be as much cricket played in Ireland as GAA. And you can put that... And 100 years ago, people might laugh at it. There was a huge number of cricket clubs in Tipperary 100 years ago, before the British left. In 100 years' time, if we don't stop the way we're going, there'll be as many cricket clubs in Tipperary because of the amount of inward migration and the pressure that the GAA are being put under.
All right, and on that note, we'll leave it, Liam. Thanks very much indeed for coming into us today. News and information is coming up.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and you're very welcome back to the second hour of Tip today. Former Sinn Féin TD in Cashel, Martin Browne, was on. Martin says the South Australian government are offering 8,000 to entice healthcare workers from Ireland to move over there. In New South Wales, they're offering nearly 10,000 to relocate. The HSE estimate that 75 to 85% of those who leave return within 2 to 5 years. A large number of young people who leave are looking to travel while young. Better work conditions, better weather conditions as well, says Martin to us this morning, and it's all pretty valid. I didn't realise they were paying so much money, Martin, to entice people over there, so there you go. Somebody else saying, we pay to train these nurses and doctors. They leave the minute that they're trained to see the world. Maybe they should repay their grants first by having them work here for at least the same amount of time as we paid for their education. And that's a very good point, and I know it's something that was discussed for many, many years, whether or not there should be an obligation on those who are trained here and those who are subsidised by the Irish taxpayer, some kind of obligation that they would spend X amount of time here. Anyway, how do you feel about that? The text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can speak to Leanne. It's a free phone number. It's 1800 938 007. Or indeed you can email us, and you can email us at any time, out of hours or whatever, and that's tiptoday@tipfm.com. Now, musician Gay Brazel spoke to me a couple of weeks ago about the ballroom days, and we got all nostalgic and all of that. It got a huge reaction, so much so we invited him back into studio to share some tales from the road, and he's with me now. Good morning to you, Gay.
Good morning, Fran.
It's good to see you today.
You too.
I'm just wondering how many of the tales from the road can we actually tell?
Well, I was going to say before we start, you know that red button you have? Will you keep your first finger poised on that in case something comes out that's classified information? Hopefully not.
Do you know, I often say there's so many books to be still written about those times. Were you surprised, Gay? Because I know that personally you got some great reaction to the piece as well. Were you surprised at that?
I was. It's amazing how much a part of today's folk that the show band era was. Yeah. It was their formative years. And as I said, there were so few there were so many less distractions.
Yeah.
As we said, the bingo, the GAA and dancing were the big pastimes of everybody, and that's what people look forward to all week, going out for the weekend, going to a few dances.
Yeah, and like yourself, I mean, I've met so many people since we first kicked off the discussion, wanting to share stories. A lot of love stories out there as well, of course.
Big time. I'd meet people all the time.
Yeah.
Who would, from the different eras of music that I was involved in over the years, from the Voxonaires to the Cowboys Tweed, and they'd say, "Oh, I met himself at a Voxonaires dance, and we started going out and we got married a year later." All this, you know, all the time.
That's great, isn't it? Carrick has been and is still a remarkable place for musicians.
It is. It's amazing.
What is that about?
I don't know, and I often wonder, was the brass band part of that? Because there was always a great tradition of brass band in Carrick, and there was a known Clonmel, the Bonnet Clonmel,
yeah.
And getting back to that, like, there was I suppose there was 3 barbers in the town at the time. There was Fons Barry, there was Paddy Carroll and Tom Carroll, 2 brothers. Very musical family, the Carrolls. Their sister Eiley, mum of our drummer Mick Grace, living in Pilton. She was a fantastic piano player. But the 2 boys, Paddy in particular, the trumpet would be always there, out of the case in the barber shop. And I remember my good friend, who's now sax player with the Backyard Band and was with me in Tweed, Dave Hallisey. When Dave wanted lessons or tips, he went into Paddy Carroll. So you go into Paddy at 11:30 in the morning. There's 3 farmers who were at the mart and came down for a quick haircut. And someone from town needing a shave, because they used to use the old wobble brushes, they called it, and mix up the foam and do it with the big open razor. That was, yeah.
What a steady hand for that.
Yeah. Wow. So Davey come in, young Hallisey. And straight away, the poor creator on the chair was left half shaved. Up a few steps into a little back room, the trumpet was out. "Now, here's what you do." And 20 minutes had passed, and eventually, what about me haircut? And this went on all the time. But then, and then his other brother. Now, Paddy was Danny's dad.
I was just going to ask you what the connection was there. The great Danny Carroll.
Yeah, and the tradition went on up to Clonmel, and Danny did so much for
so
music.
Much to develop Bannockclonmel and so
his son continues the tradition.
Absolutely, yeah. And his son Niall, of course, one of our finest broadcasters on lyric. And,
yes. And Tom told me a story. Tom played with Sean Healy band. Now, Sean was a councillor in Carrick in the early days, and a great councillor, a great politician. If Sean wanted something done, he'd get it done. And you know what? I just thought if he had been around for when St. Bridget's Hospital was under pressure and eventually closed, he would have died for that.
Would he?
Oh, yeah. Man. But Sean, it's funny, they were playing in Waterville anyway this Sunday night, and Tom was the trumpet player with the band, you see. So after the dance, the crate of Guinness had come in, and there could be a bottle of whiskey, which was traditional in a lot of the old dance band. Yeah. When you were finished, you got your fee. You got the ham sandwich and the tea, of course, before. So the boys sat down anyway and started playing poker. But Tom was the only one who didn't play poker or drink. So Tom went out to the van, the Cllr van, in the freezing frost of, I think it was a January or February, try and get a bit of sleep, because he had to go back to Carrick to open the barber shop in Bridge Street. So they eventually fell out the door in. Like, you talk about breathalyzers, name didn't exist. Drove back to Carrick anyway, so Tom was the last one to be left out of the van. Sean was driving, went down Bridge Street, opened the door. I'll see you Wednesday, says Sean. Tom and Sean, and he'd be rubbing the hands. Tom had a habit of rubbing the hands, very gentle person. Yeah. Father of my good friend Noel Carroll, who continued barbering. And what about a few bob, maybe, Sean? A few money. You don't smoke. You don't drink. Get out of the van. I'll see you Wednesday. Oh,
no money.
No, but he would be sorted, all right. But Sean possibly had lost all the money from the gig at the poker down in Waterville after the dance.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You're bringing up something now I've forgotten about all. But I mean, there was a lot of gambling going on, a lot of card playing, wasn't there?
Card playing, yes, I should have mentioned that. 45s and card playing was the other major pastime in Ireland. Like, as a young kid, my mum was teaching us around the fire to play 45s, and many's the fun night we had playing cards.
But I often heard of musicians say, going over on the ferry and stuff, they'd lose whatever money they were making on the poker.
Oh, they would. For sure.
Isn't it? Will you take me back to the early days in Kerry? The Voxonaires, though. What kind of a band was that?
It was a regular show band with three brass at one stage, but most of the time 2 brass.
And was Billy Byrne in that?
Billy Byrne was in it. We went straight from school, straight from doing the Leaving Cert, Fran, doing the last exam in the Leaving Cert, as I said to you before, into a duck egg blue Ford Transit, and I'm still in it, and Billy is kind of still trying to get out of it too. But the band went professional. Jim Grace had a day job from Peltown. He was with Watney's Brewery. He was on the road as a rep. Quit the job. Paul Kiefer, drummer from Portlaw, quit what he was at. Dave Halsey quit the tannery in Portlaw. And Billy and myself came straight from school. Off we went, living the dream, but sure.
It's amazing. But the guys who gave up their permanent jobs for that must have been a huge decision, was it?
It was a huge decision, but we all knew that there was a good livelihood to be made from playing music at the time. If you got into a successful show band and you worked hard and rehearsed. We rehearsed. We used to be in the old Church of Ireland, which is now the Heritage Centre in Carrick. One end of it was, before it was restored, they used, on a winter's night, the rain would be flopping in on the floor. We'd be up the other end. And, you know, as I say, we'd have electricity and cables and everything, sure.
Brilliant, yeah. But it was a great ethos of yours right throughout the bands that you were with, and I know this for a fact. Rehearsal was very important. The amount of time that you put in, I know, and the people with you in the bands.
That was it. And we had no help, we had no tuition, we had no, apart from a chord book you might buy in Walton's, or you had no YouTube.
You had to work everything out yourself.
Everything out, bit by bit. But you know what? We all had the hunger to do it.
Yeah.
So we would go through stone walls to learn the latest Beatles song or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember working out the brass and All You Need Is Love, the Beatles one, and the Beatles were, there was chords going on.
Yeah, and to work out the brass arrangement for that was a lot
and all
of
by
that.
ear.
Yeah.
Now Tommy Dwyer, he was from the army band in Clonmel.
Trumpet player, wasn't he? Yeah.
Oh, he was a sax player.
A sax player.
And a good one, and a good singer.
Yeah.
Declan, his son, still plays music, Tommy would have the dots written out, and of course there might be a discrepancy then in a chord, and there'd be murder.
There would be a row.
Well, and the brass would sound lovely on its own. Like Davey would play one line, and Billy would play, and he'd play the lovely sax line. It would all be wonderful when they were in the corner on their own playing it. But when the rhythm section, myself and Jim Elwood on bass, God be good to him, and Jim Grace, I'd have the chords worked out with the guys as close as I could get to what
was on the record,
John Lennon had intended.
Yeah.
And then there'd be a bum note in the middle, and individually they both sounded grand. Tommy would say, Tommy, there's a problem. What? Tommy would say, and out would come the packet of Major and the matches and what's up now? There's just one note, Tommy. I'm up since I was up till 3 o'clock this morning working out them brass parts. There's nothing wrong with them. No, when you play on your own, they're lovely, I said, Tommy. But when you play together...
With us, it's different.
So, you little so-and-so, and we'll keep the language respectful. So eventually he'd relent, and to be only a half note. This is all the work that people who come to the gigs would never see, see, or never have any idea of. No. And... you wouldn't dare, if a band was going on the road, there'd be at least 2 to 3 months rehearsal before they started.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be left anywhere near the rehearsal, the show band wagon door, unless you had put in the 3 months with the boys.
Right, and that would be full-scale rehearsal, wouldn't it? Days of rehearsal.
Joe Dolan did it in Mullingar. Ben used to be like a devil with Tommy Swarbrick, because Tommy was meticulous and perfectionist, down to the last note on the trombone or the trumpet, and Ben would be saying, "It's grand, it's all right." No, it's not grand, and there'd be murder even when they went recording. There'd be days, and Ben would be looking at the cost of the recording.
I know, but that's a whole other aspect of it too. Is that you put together 7, as it was back in the show one day, 7 or 8 fellas on the stage, and have the crew and the management and stuff, all different personalities. You were about to have war.
Well, at that time the roof of the van would be ready to fly off, all right. But you know what? The common bond we had through music took us through everything.
Yeah.
Personality clashes and all sorts of differences of opinion. We all had the common interest of just trying to be a good band.
Yeah.
So you bit the bullet on a lot of stuff and kept going.
And were you hurt when, at one stage, people like Bob Geldof and stuff, there was a lot of criticism of show band musicians and stuff. Was that hurtful when you consider the amount of time and effort?
It was, because I used to look up to the guys in the beat scene in Dublin, so to speak.
Yeah.
The younger guys who were creating new stuff and trying to follow the Stones and the Beatles as accurately as they could. I did, and I looked up to them, and I always felt, well, it was a bit unfair, because, to be honest, the show band was a marvellous university for a young musician to learn, cut his teeth and learn his trade. You didn't always get that in the beat scene, because they were starting with original music almost straight away. So they didn't have to emulate George Harrison on the guitar or Keith Richards or whoever, Mick Jagger.
Right, so they didn't import all this experience and these styles.
Some of the ones who made it through, like U2 and a few more, that was grand, because they didn't have to play anybody else's music. But sometimes when they went into a jam session or something, they wouldn't have had the experience that Paddy Cole had on a sax, or lots of the guys, to busk, close the eyes and just rip off a lovely solo.
Yeah.
because of all that listening we had done on copying fellas and
of course, yeah,
trying to sound like Chuck Berry.
And even the amazing thing I found with the kind of snobbery around it is interesting, because if you take the Stones, for example, I mean, everything that they played in the early years came from the American experience that they took from records.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And this is where the Beatles got everyone. We all were amazed at the Beatles' knowledge of chords in 1961, 62.
Very clever, yeah.
But the reason was they had gone by boat to Kiel and Hamburg from Liverpool to earn their living over in the nightclubs to play to the American forces. So they got to know the soldiers and they got to know their music, and they gave them their 45s of Frank
soul
Sinatra
music
and soul music,
swing
and they
music
were
and
right
all
up
that.
to date with what was going on in America. So they worked out all these chords.
Yeah.
So then, coupled, of course, with George Martin's knowledge, being a classical player,
Absolutely, yeah.
they had this wonderful dictionary of chords at their...
So every musician stands on the shoulders of others. I mean,
They really do.
the way it is, isn't
Yeah,
it? You
they
know,
really do. I
is
mean,
indeed.
yeah, that's-
You're going to come into us over the next few months, and we're going to chat about the old days, because there's so much to talk about, isn't there?
There isn't, and so much fun.
Yeah.
For everybody, for the musicians and for the audience.
Yeah, and one aspect, and sadly we don't have time for it today, but I can't wait to talk about some of the experiences of the late night driving, because there's a book in that alone, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll be telling you about my most embarrassing moment in, of all places, the Royal Albert Hall.
Go on, I can't just
You know,
leave. I can't leave that there now. How long would that tell me to take?
Well, if you have time.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, the Cowboys
Royal
were-
Albert Hall.
Yeah. The Cowboys were invited. There was I think it was a country music special in England, and there was English country bands and Irish country bands, and the Cowboys were very popular in Ireland at the time. We were invited over as part of the bill, and there was Patsy Powell and the Playboys. I remember she was in English. She was kind of top of the pile in England of the country bands. So Johnny McAvoy was also on the bill. So we arrived anyway in London, plenty of time, down, set up our gear, and we were doing rehearsals and sound checks, and Johnny McAvoy came into the dressing room. He said, "How are you lads? Who's your guitar player?" He said, you know, and Jim Gray said, "That's Gay Brazel over there." And he came over, "Gay, can I ask you a favour?" "If I can at all, Johnny," he said. "Look, my guitar player couldn't travel. Philip, I think was his name, fabulous player.
Remember him well, yeah.
Would you ever come on stage and just play with me, play a few notes with me?" God, I said, "I'd be honoured." And of course, immediately the blood pressure went to the barometer went nearly broke at the top. I said, "I will. Can we ever run through?" "Of course we can." Rehearsed. I went, rehearsed the chords I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And okay, came on stage. I had a Vox amplifiers, was all to go at the time. I had my amplifier ready. I had my guitar with me in the dressing room. So up the stairs we went. "Ladies and gentlemen, direct from Ireland, Mr. Johnny McAvoy." Place was packed, full house. Big round of applause. Johnny comes out with his guitar, and "How are you folks? Lovely to be here now." And I went back to my amp to plug in. Plugged in my guitar, turned on, no power. Looked around the back of the amp. Someone had swiped my plug board.
Oh,
some of the other bands, and brought it off to some other far corner of the very wide Albert Hall stage.
So he's live at this
So
point.
he's live. He's outside and he's looking around to me. Are you ready? Are you right, Gay?" "I have no power, Johnny. I can't." "Well, we'll be with you in a moment, folks. Go ahead. I'll manage it on my own." So here's Brazel with his guitar and a big red face, redder than normal, slinking off the stage in shame.
In the Royal Albert Hall.
In the Royal Albert Hall. Oh, man. I'll never forget.
Oh, it's a great story. It's a great story. We're looking forward to many more stories like that over the coming months,
great
Gay. But lovely to see you today, and thanks
You
very
too.
much for
Thanks,
coming. It
Fran.
was fair play to you. We'll take a break, and then we're going live to that protest at the Bord Bia building in Dublin, where the IFA are still protesting there. Back in just a few moments.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
The Taoiseach Micheál Martin has said the controversy surrounding Bord Bia chair Larry Murren had gone too far, warning that the ongoing farmer protests risk sending the wrong message globally about Ireland's food supply chain. Now, in comments made during a wide-ranging interview with the Sunday Independent, Micheál Martin said he was very taken aback by how all of that developed and expressed concern about the direction of the campaign against the Bord Bia chair. I'm glad to be joined now by Tom Byrne, who is former chairman of Wicklow IFA and is now chair of the Rural Development Committee in Wicklow and sits on the national board. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran.
And we really appreciate you coming on with us this morning.
We're delighted to have the opportunity to come on, Fran. And if I might just say also, this is our 7th day sitting in. And if you will excuse us, our brains are slightly frazzled. So we may be a little bit incoherent, but we'll do our best.
Well, you're not incoherent at all. We can hear you loud and clear, Tom. You were rather hungry, in fact, until this morning, Tom. Is that right?
Look, food was definitely restricted, still is mildly restricted. We get food in twice a day, 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. On the instructions of people belonging to the house here, shall we say, without going any further. But look, we have sufficient in now, and we're doing okay. We're fine.
What did you make of those comments? I presume you're across them, Tom, of what Micheál Martin had to say in The Independent yesterday. He figures it's all gone too far. He was very concerned and taken aback by how it had all developed.
And I partly understand where the Taoiseach is coming from, but we feel that we have a quality product, and we feel that it is being, well, we'll use the word contaminated with food coming in from other countries. And we're very annoyed at that. We have a green image. We don't want our green image to be tainted by other products. And using our green image to sell product right around the world on the Irish green image. And Fran, the longer we have stayed here, needless to say, the more times we've had to research it and look at it. And the harder we look at it, the more we see that something is wrong here. And maybe we did act, but we had to act. We had no choice. And I'm a backer of this government. I am a friend of Simon Harris's. I know Minister Hayden quite well over interactions over the years, and have great respect for these men. But maybe they didn't know everything that was going on either. And we feel that it was time that the whole job was woke up. And as maybe you wouldn't know, Fran, that there was a review of the entire Bord Bia inspection process. And we have facilitated that and worked with Bord Bia over the last year and a half to ensure an even better standard, an even higher standard for Irish food. And we can't see that being abused in any way or form. And we're really upset about it, Fran, without putting any hyperbole in it. We're really, really upset about it. And we wanted to make the point. And I think we have made the point. And I think in general the public is behind us. But like I say, we understand where the Prime Minister or the Taoiseach is coming from, but we have a point to make, and we had to make that point.
What about where? And you see, I think people who are not farmers, they might be very concerned about what the Taoiseach said when he said that that it could damage the reputation of Ireland's food globally. That's a big statement to make, Tom.
It's a huge statement. But in fact, that's what we are concerned about. We can't have it to say that unregulated beef imports from Brazil is in any way, shape or form contaminating one of the best products in the entire world. Let that be beef, sheep or chicken. We are defending our right. We have worked extremely hard to have a brilliant, brilliant product. And it's recognised across the world. It's reckoned that Irish food feeds at least 40 million people. We do export 90% of beef produce. We export to China baby food. We cannot take a chance that that food is in any way, shape or form contaminated. And 1%, we only accept 0%. We want to be assured that it is quality product, quality food that is leaving Ireland. Years back, Fran, in Ireland, hormones was banned and farmers went to jail for using hormones. And we didn't condone those farmers who did that. Proper order, they go to jail. We didn't ban the use of hospital, but antibiotics is strictly controlled in Ireland. You have withdrawal pills. There are antibiotics that, because they are very powerful to the human population, are not allowed to be used in animal production. So we have an absolute duty to the consuming public, to the consumers in the rest of the world that eat our product, that it is the best. And we will not entertain that product being contaminated in any way or form.
It is in the government, in the interest of the government and all of the Irish people, to go along with what you're saying. But it's interesting that the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach, the Minister and Mr. Moran himself saying that food companies exporting from Ireland, Tom, must be able to give customers certainty of supply. And it seems to be all hanging on that certainty of supply. So they need access to other beef.
And we have no problem with that, Dan. We have no problem with that. So long as the choice is there. Clearly labelled South American Brazilian beef, clearly labelled as Irish product. That's not an issue. And we know that beef is maybe not the most plentiful in the world now that it used to be. Look, and we absolutely accept that. But we also insist that the products are clearly labelled other than Ireland product and an Irish product. And we are absolutely happy with that. And quite honestly, we were, as a farming organisation, were a little taken back that the government took the opinion that there was nothing wrong with it. But look, the whole thing happened so fast, Fran, that it maybe got out a little bit. We felt we had to act. We felt we had to come in and make a stand and say, but be absolutely clear, Fran, that we absolutely say that so long as the product is clearly branded Brazilian, Irish, North Dakota, South Dakota, wherever you care to mention, the public can make the choice. But when the public doesn't know that what they're eating, they haven't had no choice in the matter. And that's a big thing. And that's why we're here sitting in Bord Bia headquarters up here in Dublin, up the American Embassy, because we feel that it was wrongly labelled and we feel that the consumer didn't know. The consumer is the biggest and most important person we have. We can produce food all day and we produce it for the consumer, and we're as carbon efficient as absolutely any product in the world. If we walk to these standards, why would the rest of the world not walk them?
Do you feel a little let down by the other farming organisations? And I'm thinking of the ICMSA and the ICSA as well. It seems to be the IFA have the spotlight on them where this is concerned.
Absolutely. There are 11 organisations that represent the farming community at the present time. Okay, and sure there are certain different types of views within it, but in general, and we can go to the next biggest one, and everyone knows who they are, and they are backing this. Maybe not with a physical presence, but they are behind it. They produce milk to a standard that's unbelievable. We have derogation. The rules around derogation for milk production is frightening. And as I mentioned earlier about the baby food going to China, baby food can go to China, and the Chinese can have absolute confidence that it's the best in the world. As you know, a few years back, you couldn't get baby food on the shelves in Ireland because of it all going to China, and every person that had a connection in China was buying it up and sending it to China. That's the sort of confidence that we want, Fran, and that's the sort of confidence we know that we can achieve And we can't take a chance on the product that we're producing.
Where are you now, though? Because at this stage, I mean, Mr. Murn is not for turning. The IFA appear to be not for turning on this. The government have already put it out there who they're siding with and what they're siding with.
Absolutely.
So we're at stalemate, Tom. How do we get out of this?
And as I said, Fran, we are in the Bord Bia headquarters for the 7th day, 6 of us. The 6 of us here for the 7th day. And like, we have suggestions as to where it should go, and we feel it's a decision that the board has to take. As you know, IFA, ICMSA and other farming bodies have a representation on that board, and we would be calling on those people to make the right decision and change the chairman. And the chairman doesn't necessarily need to leave the board, but he does need to stand beside his chairman.
But he said he was looking for dialogue with you, Tom. But you know,
well, I think that train is in progress. That train has started to roll. We believe so. So we're hoping. We also have hoping for dialogue. In fact, Patrick McCormack, who is the national treasurer for IFA, wrote to Larry O'Toole, wasn't it, Patrick? Jim O'Toole, to meet us today here in Bord Bia buildings, anywhere he wanted to meet us, so he could talk to us 6, meet us here. And we haven't had a response to that. Look, dialogue is absolutely the only way forward, Brad. Absolutely, and you're 100% right. And look, there has been a few mistakes made along the way, and in the heat of the moment, there probably were mistakes made.
From your own point of view, from the IFA's point of view, is it?
Probably from everyone's point of view. I mean, to say it's a mistake that there was 1% of food, 1% of Brazilian meat put in a quality assured product. Was that a mistake? You know, so there have been mistakes made. Look, if you wanted to have a talk here to Richard.
Hi, Fran. Richard Moran here from County Cavan.
Hi, Richard, and good to talk to you today, and welcome to Tipp FM. Your thoughts on what Tom has been saying to me there, Richard?
Yeah, well, just to add in a couple of things, Bord Bia is the organisation that's kind of been questioned here through the chairman of the board. Now, if you consider, there's 2 aspects to what Bord Bia do. One of them involves the producers, which is us on the ground, and that's the bedrock of what Bord Bia does. The lifeblood of Bord Bia is the export industry and the markets that our foods go to around the world. So there has to be complete cohesion between Bord Bia, the bedrock, the producers, and the lifeblood, which is the export market, and the millions of consumers that eat and drink Irish produce around the world. That all is based on image, a good image, a clean image, and that image is so important to everybody. Now, to create that image, Bord Bia have this quality assurance scheme, and it's a complicated scheme for producers. Any farmer listening will understand exactly what is entailed in that. But that is to ensure that the image of Irish food is at the highest possible level. Now, that's one side of it. On the other side, you have imports that do not meet any of the standards that would be qualified for quality assurance. And if you have food coming into the country that is produced under a totally different standard, it's impossible to make the 2 compatible. And the problem we have is, and the problem that the bedrock, we go back to that term, the bedrock, the producers see the chairman of Bord Bia importing Brazilian product. Now, that is just incompatible with everything that we as the producers are doing. And it signals a sort of a break in the relationship between those 3 components that I mentioned.
But Richard, when you have the Taoiseach, the Tánaiste, and the Minister for Agriculture coming out to say that, you know, that this is okay, we can understand this, it's all about supply for these companies and one thing and another, and that we need to be careful that we're not sending out the wrong message globally. So what do you say to that?
Well, what I would say very clearly is I think this is a political football. I think the opposition got in first on this one. Had they not got in, I think it would have been a lot easier for the individuals that you've just mentioned to be able to see the light through the trees. It's an important time of year. We've got trade missions going out for St. Patrick's Day. This is the ambassadorial time for our produce, and it's a time for Bord Bia to shine a light on everything that we do here that's so good. So the fact that we're in their building at the moment, they've evacuated the building, they've abandoned the building, they've basically they're in a difficult position. They need to be able to. We all need to be able to bring this together, and the right political rhetoric is important. Restoring confidence on the ground with farmers is important, and putting Bord Bia back into the position that they have as the ambassadors for our food is really, really important. So this has to be sorted because it can't go on.
Well, it certainly can't go on. So are you willing to talk to Larry Moran at this point?
Well, Larry Moran has made his points very clear. Larry is an exceptionally good businessman, and what he's done over the years of building that business in Dawn Farm Foods you cannot deny that it's an exceptional business. The problem he has, dialogue really doesn't change the fact that he imported Brazilian beef and chicken.
Right, but you told me how important Bord Bia is to farmers and to all of us indeed. And when Simon Harris came out, I mean, he associated the growth of Bord Bia with the role of Mr. Moran as chair.
Yeah, it is. And I suppose if you look at the family farm structure, and I'm going to bring this down into a little bit more of a synopsis. The family farm structure is under pressure. And we heard from testimony on Friday from Larry Moran how much his business has grown. And we're talking a billion and billions and billions of growth in that industry, in this processed food export business. And it's Ireland Inc. And he used that term, Ireland Inc., probably 4 or 5 times. And in fairness, he had every right to boast about how well they're doing. And then on the other side, you've got the farmers who, the family farm structure, Brian, as you know, in this country is under serious pressure. So you've got one side under pressure and the other side is chucking their hands up in the air and saying, we're doing unbelievable business, and thanks to us, you guys are still alive and surviving. Well, we would say, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be doing all this incredible business. There has to be a happy medium. And the problem is that happy medium has been broken by the fact that the chairman of Bord Bia imported Brazilian chicken and beef. The minute he admitted to that, his role as chairman became untenable in the eyes of the producers, the bedrock of what Bord Bia do.
Richard, thank you for your time today, and thanks to Tom as well. And I'm sure we'll be following that story in great detail over the coming days and possibly weeks as well. 1800 938 007.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800 938 007. Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
And you're very welcome back to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. Liam says, I will refuse admission of any Bord Bia inspectors as of now, even if I lose some EU grants, unless the present CEO steps back. Then Bord Bia, as we know it, will fall apart worldwide, says Liam to us today. You're not shooting yourself in the foot, though, where that's concerned. Donald was on to say, Fran, would motor vehicles sold into Brazil from Europe be of inferior quality to those sold in Europe? Sounds fair to me if we have to accept inferior beef from Brazil, says Donald to us today. Let me see, there was one more I wanted to bring you there and I kind of lost it. Any matter that arises that undermines the reputation of our quality beef has to be addressed. This is one of our listeners on 083 311 3311. Leanne is with me. Hi, Leanne.
Good morning, Fran.
The queen of the archive.
I know.
And all of that as well. You were talking to us when we were in Nina last Friday about ghost and fairy stories from around the county. So, you have more?
Oh, we have some more, and this one's actually in Clonmel.
Oh.
This next one. So it's the former drapery shop on O'Connell Street in Clonmel, and it was 1986, so not that long ago either. So there was strange voices and sounds heard by the occupants of the building, only from the beginning. So the minute they went into the building at the beginning of the shop, they heard it. So over a period of weeks, it started building up from just those voices to screaming and laughing. and bedclothes were thrown through the windows and furnishings were knocked over.
Good God. Like a poltergeist type thing, is it?
Yeah, and then out of nowhere, it stopped.
Just stopped?
Just completely stopped.
Wow.
Yeah. So that one was absolutely terrifying.
And was there any story behind it? Was there any investigation?
No, because they said people flocked to the site to try and see it.
Oh.
All the ghost hunters, to try and find out what was going on.
Right. Anything we're talking about, by the way, if anybody remembers these events or have anything to add to them, we'd love to hear from them.
Yeah, let us know. We'd love to hear.
What else have you got?
So another one in Clonmel. So it's an unnamed road leading southwards, passing over a bridge. So it's a bit of an unusual location. That's the only description we're given.
Okay.
So it's the late 19th or early 20th century. So there was someone walking to a friend's house late at night and they spotted a glowing woman in white with long hair across a bridge ahead of him. Then the girl vanished without a trace. And upon mentioning it, when he arrived at his destination, his friend told him that the same figure had appeared at the foot of his bed a few nights previously.
Wow. Now, was this after closing time? I always try and find that out just in case. Right. Have you one more for us?
Yeah, in Donahill. So it's the road outside the rectory.
Donahill.
Donahill.
Donahill, yes.
Yeah, that's my accent coming out. Donahill. Apologies to anyone from Donahill. So it's an unknown, but a black dog haunted a stretch of road. And there have been no sightings for at least 100 years. So it's been 100 years since anyone has seen the black dog.
Now you see, you have me concerned. Because that's kind of my stomping ground around there. So, yeah.
Now you'll have to go out, and it's called a shook. That's the type of haunting this is called.
A shook?
A shook.
That's a ghostly dog, is it?
So each of them are given a title. So that's what so manifestation is when something appears to you, but this animal haunting is called a shook.
I'd be fairly shook if I saw anything like that. You're going to continue with this for us, are you?
Yeah, there's so many.
All right, okay.
There's so many out there.
You're going to bring it to us in episodes?
In episodes, yeah. So I'll break them down and get some more.
All right, but you'd love to hear from people out there, I guess, Leanne, who want to share these kind of
we
stories.
want to have people on to share their ghostly experiences or any old ghost tales they've heard.
We still didn't get to the UFO piece.
Oh, that's brilliant. Right. It's worth waiting for.
When are we going to do that?
Wednesday. I have it ready to go, so we'll be ready.
All right, let's hear let's hear that on Wednesday. Thanks very much indeed, Leanne. If you want to talk to Leanne, it's 1800 938 007. Right, where are we? News and information is on the way.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the final hour of Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. Our free phone number to speak to Leanne. Can I say thank you very much to Ina Moran, because Ina heard us talking about the old ballroom days and the show bands and all of that, but she left in the most beautiful hardback coffee table type book about the show bands into the office in Nina, and sadly I didn't get to see her because I was on air at the time, but it's a wonderful read, and particularly the photographs in it are outstanding. So Ina, thank you so much, and very, very generous of you to do that. A listener says it's about time our TDs talked up and stood behind our farmers. Their silence is backing for the government, it says here. And another listener saying to us, America only offers tariffs, which are taxes. Let Ireland trade elsewhere apart from America. Bord Bia is holding the Irish citizens to ransom again. Argentina and Brazilian beef are welcome. They are known for their steaks, says Michael in Killinall. It's grand, but you see, we don't know what's in them, I suppose, Michael, and that's the big argument of the moment. Let us speak to our relationships expert, Susan O'Donoghue, who's with me. So good morning to you, Susan.
Morning, Fred.
Good to talk to you today. You're going to talk to us about an interesting one and understanding the couple relationship. I would imagine that's something we could talk about for a long, long time, is it?
We could go on about it forever. because we're all different within a couple relationship. And I suppose with Valentine's coming up and all that, some love it, some hate it, we run from it, we some of us dive into it. And I suppose there'll be a lot of expectation around it and a lot of disappointment.
More disappointment,
I would say so. And then I suppose it's about, look, I always think that our behaviours give us an insight into what's going on for us. And that's the most important relationship you'll ever have, is the one with yourself. So before you try and marry someone else, right, I think you need to marry yourself. Yeah,
you need to come to an understanding of yourself.
100%. You need to be able to marry in with yourself. In other words, get an understanding of what's going on for you. I suppose this is a really lovely one. Pierre Mornell said it. It is not a question of how a couple can be equal and alike, but rather a problem of how a couple can be equal and different. And I think that sums it up, doesn't it? Because for most of us, when we get into a couple relationship, we have all these ideas in our head of what it's going to be like.
Yes.
And chances are it's not going to be like that. And then we try and mould the other person, or we try and do everything for them, or we try live through them or live for them, if that makes sense.
And none of that works.
Doesn't, like, it's proven, isn't it? And I was just looking, just for a bit of fun, and I was thinking, how many people get divorced or apply for divorces in Ireland per year? It's between 5,000 and 6,000.
Is it?
Yeah. I was kind of, I said, that's hefty, isn't it? I mean, I think around 20-something thousand get married every year. And I know that these went down in 2024, but so did the amount of people getting married. So maybe it's not so popular anymore to get married. Do you know what I mean? Maybe we just like to live together. Maybe that whole fairy tale dream.
Cohabitating, as they call it now. Yeah.
And I think that that's not such a bad thing when you think about our expectations around, for young girls being swept off by the night on the white horse, and like this kind of, unimaginable stuff that we think about that our lives are going to be like. I don't think anyone's is ever like they think it's going to be.
But I mean, from what you've been saying to us over the years, I mean, expecting anybody to bring you happiness or to make you complete is the wrong way to be going, is it?
And there's that famous line from that movie, "You Complete Me." Was it Tom?
Yeah. God almighty. Stop.
No such thing in my head. I just think we need to be able to bring ourselves out of ourselves. I call it emergence more than, because it's in there. We're in there, right? We just need to connect in with ourselves, and we've put things in place so we won't, because it was too dangerous, and now we need to learn how to connect back in again. We need to learn what makes us happy. And if you ask lots of people what makes you happy, they look at you like you've two heads. They go, "What do you mean? What are you saying? That's stupid. What are you talking about?" And it's that simple. What brings you joy? What makes you happy? What makes you upset is more important, right? So I think it's very important, like, to look at stuff like, say, on the emotional side, like coldness, jealousy, fearfulness, loneliness, depression. Like, are they coming up for you? Or do you find them when you meet the other, right? The other half, as they call it. I don't believe it's the other half. I believe it's two separate people coming together to bring that richness to each other. And socially, like, have you few or no social outings together? Like, do you get invitations from outsiders? Is there long periods of silence between you? And I think the violence of silence, I've always said it, I think that can be more harmful than the actual screaming and roaring. Like, it can come between you more. And then financially, is there an inequality around the finances? Is there over controlling or finance is one controlling the finances? Is there a meanness, overspending, or a gambling issue? Like, what's coming up for you? You know what I mean? Because generally, as I say, conflict, happy conflict, as Tony Humphries would say, because that shows up what is underneath, right? So if we're having a lot of conflict and we're having a lot of, even like looking at the other and going, "Oh my God, they're driving me insane," but this is going on a lot. Now there's my opportunity to have a look at what is driving me insane here, right? Because generally what we'll do, we'll focus on the other and we'll go, "They're driving me crazy," right? But we don't look at what are they touching into?
Why they're driving me crazy.
What are they touching into in me? Because if it wasn't in there, they couldn't touch into it, right? And I know people refer to that as triggers, but for some reason triggers doesn't sit right for me. I think of a loaded gun, and I don't want that in a relationship. And I suppose, a lot of things that can come between couples, I suppose, is like, say, your occupation and stuff. If one person has a better job or a better, and then does the other person, or do you tend to, I suppose, be like all consumed by your job? Are you like working too late? Are you always gone? Is it hard work to stay at home? Like, what's going on for me here? That's the question to ask. And I suppose behaviours, like, is there threatening behaviour, aggression, blaming, violence, possessiveness? I'd say there's a lot of blame in relationships in my experience. If we take out like the whole, violence and all that side of it, there's a huge amount of blame because we blame people for a lot of stuff that we don't take responsibility for. Yeah. So I think when we look at these things that come up for us, and sexually, am I happy with my own body? Am I happy with my sex life? Like, what's happening here for me? Because as the fella says, like, money and sex don't matter until you don't have them.
Right. Yeah.
That's the bottom line, isn't it? And it's kind of like that. And intellectually, like, does somebody think they're more superior than the other in the couple relationship? That can cause real hassle, like, and I suppose putting another partner down, feeling inferior, worrying all the time, living in the past or the future. Am I saying, in 3 years' time when I get there, I'll be happy then? Like, what's that needs to be looked at. What's happening for me here that I can't enjoy the moment that I'm in now? Because for lots of us, I know I did for years, I lived in the future. When I get this,
I'll be happy then.
Yeah. And that's really not living.
Yeah.
That's surviving. That's waiting for something better to happen. So I suppose before we look at the other's behaviour, we really need to look at our own. And each partner needs to ask themselves, right, is my love unconditional that I have for the other person?
Explain that to me.
Right, so do I have conditions attached? Valentine's Day coming up. What's my expectation? Am I expecting them to do X, Y and Z on Valentine's Day? Or do I love them unconditionally? Am I prepared to say, I'd really like it if you'd buy this for me for Valentine's Day. That's what my need is. Can I say that? Because half the time we expect people to know what we want. Like I've done it for years as well, hand up, and women are great at it. It doesn't work, right? Because you're going to be disappointed more than you're, happy. That's the bottom line. And that's what I mean by is my love unconditional? Is there an expectation there that my partner is going to behave in a certain way? Am I trying to change him, to mould him, to fix him? Yeah, him or her. Like, what am I trying to do here? Or am I okay to accept them just as they are? That's a hard one, isn't it?
It's a very hard one, yeah. And at the risk of causing a row here, is it particularly a woman thing that they would say, yeah, your man now, when we get married, I'm going to sort this out now. The 5 nights a week out with the boys and the going off to matches and flying over here to see their favourite teams. That's not going to happen when we're together now. Is that, as I say, at the risk of annoying people out there, is that a woman thing?
Right, so I'm not going to annoy anyone because I'm not going to fall into that trap. I am a woman. I've never been a man, so I don't know.
Yes.
But I'd imagine that it's a human thing because I'd say there's an awful lot of...
Pat Murphy is shaking his head out there, for some reason, out on the landing.
And I suppose when you think about it, right, if we think logically about it, we're all human beings. We're brought up differently, and we certainly are male and female. We know that, right? And there is certain expectations around, even now, and we're hugely beyond where we were 50 years ago, but there's still an expectation, around the man is the one hunter-gatherer, and that's still in there a little bit. I'll get murdered for that, but it is still there a small bit. And the woman is the nurturer and has the babies and minds them and all the rest of it. So there is a sense of that there. But the other side of it is as human beings, am I prepared to take you just as you are? Or do I want to change you? That's a question that's so important before I get into, say, a commitment with you.
And if you're not, Susan?
Right, then you need to question it.
Okay, because somebody might say, okay, this person, I can sort of go along with 80% of who they are, but there's 20% there now I'm sort of a bit dodgy about.
Right, and the 20% then, I need to bring that back home. What are they now touching into?
Okay.
There you have it.
Right,
so that's the process. What now? It's not to say, they'll need to change now if they want to stay here. The key to it is to look at, and it's not about staying here or staying, because it's not about, I suppose, banishing them or whatever. It's about looking at, they're touching into something in me now, right? Through our wisdom, right, as human beings, we're able to draw people to us that are going to touch in to stuff we need to look at. Now think about how amazing that is, and that's done unconsciously, right? So we'll draw people to us that are on the same level of consciousness as us, right? So if I grew up in a house that maybe, people shouted in or people whatever, right, and then I'll draw someone to me that maybe mightn't be as violent as what I grew up with, or mightn't be as, but they might shout, and straight away I'll jump, right? Because I may not like that. I might run a mile from it. So it'll touch into something in me. So now it's like your automatic response is to go, oh, don't be doing that, stop, right? But the real response needed is the one to look in and think, oh my goodness, they raised their voice, but it wasn't, like I remember growing up, it wasn't as violent, or it wasn't, they were just talking, but their voice was raised, and I got really upset by that. What is happening for me? Now, it's different if it's an abusive relationship, of course. But if it's just one and you're going, oh my God, now I need to work on myself, right? You could say to the other that, I felt this, and and remember, you're talking from an I place now. You're not saying, you screamed at me and you upset me. Yeah. You're saying, I just felt this inside, my stomach churned, and I feel like you weren't screaming at me, but your voice raised and it brought me right back. How is that to look at it that way?
But isn't that a very reasonable way to deal with something that concerns you, or that is...
It makes so much logic to me, right? But Fran, we've got to give ourselves a bit of a break here, I suppose, because we're not in houses growing up that look at it that way. The world looks at it a different way. They look at it like blame, push it away, don't deal with it, run a mile, or like be very confrontational around it, whatever your protector is. Remember, we've put these in place because we couldn't say anything when we were children.
It's interesting. Have you thought about, within the context of what we're chatting about here, have you thought about love?
Love, I think it's amazing. I think you're thinking about now the fluffy stuff.
Well, I'm thinking about just love in general, and in terms of people's expectations of it, or their feelings of it, or what.
Number one, the number one person to love consciously now, because remember, we always love ourselves, it's either consciously or unconsciously, but the number one person to love consciously is yourself. You will not be in a space to love another unconditionally and consciously, right? Unless you love yourself that way. You cannot give what you don't have. Okay? So if I'm coming into a relationship and I have a load of protectors, now this person hopefully is the person that I chose wisely to touch into it, to give me the opportunity to look at all my protectors. Right? So the questions that we're going through there is like, do I send the I message? Because remember, this is taking responsibility now for my own behaviour. It's taking responsibility for my actions. It's a big move from what we were brought up with for a lot of us. Yeah? There's very few, I think, in my journey in life, my experience, there's not a whole pile of people who take a lot of responsibility for their actions. We see great leaders in the world and we're looking at them going, what the hell?
They blame everybody and anybody.
Blame. Yeah. So, like, for somebody to take responsibility and put their hand up and say, do you know what, I'm going to own this now, I'm going to look at it for myself and I'm going to see what's coming up for myself. What are my feelings trying to tell me? Why am I so upset when this happens? Where am I? Who am I with? Why does it happen? What time does it happen? Where does it happen? All these questions. It's about questioning all that. Can I remember a time when I had similar, stress or anxiety or, upset or whatever? And that's what it's about. It's about bringing it back to that. If I don't understand what's going on for me, I can do nothing about it. That's logic, isn't it?
And if people who have been listening to Susan O'Donoghue over the past few years on this programme, and through those conversations might feel that they're growing as a person, but the other person that isn't listening to Susan probably isn't growing at the same rate, is that an issue?
Okay. Behaviour leads behaviour.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Nobody wants to be stuck. It's human nature.
So you can bring people along.
Well, I don't think we'd be that.
I knew you were going to pick me up on the semantics of that.
I wouldn't say I'm bringing someone along, right? Because I know I discussed this.
Well,
with
I meant that in the most gentle way. But yes,
behaviour leads behaviour,
so
right?
Through example,
and remember, you draw someone to you that's on the same level of consciousness as you are, right? So that's generally right. So if I have. The two of us are sitting here and we're whatever, right? We're a couple relationship, and my biggest fear was when my poor husband was going through my college years with me, was that I'm going to leave him behind. God love him, yeah.
Poor thing. I'm going to be so evolved.
Oh yeah, what's he going to do? He'll never keep up with me. Little did I know, he offers nuggets of wisdom sometime, and I look at him and think, who did the course, right? So, like, I believe that this is a lifelong journey. There's no switch. There's no magic wand. It's about listening to yourself. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about always when you feel like you're going out there to blame someone else, or when the you statements come out, it's winding it back in and go, what's my responsibility in this?
Right, but can I press you on my question to you, which was about love and that notion of falling in love in some fashion or other. Do you believe in that notion of?
I believe in the notion of what I have for myself I can share with another. So I believe the notion of, I believe there's such a thing as unconsciousness around love. I believe there's such a thing around this the beautiful knight on the white horse coming to rescue me. That's not love. Yeah, okay. That's not love in my head. That's fantasy. Yeah, I do believe. I think, and even as I said, in our unconsciousness around ourselves, we still love ourselves. But we're always loving of ourselves, but it's either conscious or unconscious. We either have our defences in there and our walls up, and then no one can get in, and there's no room for growth because we're stuck.
Yes.
Right? And that's the problem with our defensives. They've been amazing. They've got us through all that. We cannot love another unless we love ourselves. So if you think for 1 minute that, all these things upset me, I've never looked at my life, I've never had a chance to explore what's going on for me, and you're headlong into relationships, for most people, in my experience, what they find is they'll find these things coming up the whole time that are like, it's like being on a roller coaster. You go up and you hit a whole load of challenges, you come back down, you go back, you hit a whole load of challenges, you come back down. There's like no getting off the roller coaster, for want of, unless you bring it back home to yourself. So you'll find your relationships don't work.
Susan, is this not the most valuable information you could give to young people? Like, for example, setting out. Do you know what I mean? Why don't we do this?
Why don't we do a lot of things? And I mean, I've often seen with young people, I'd have a good few young people coming to me, but what I'd have is they're so open to change, but when you've been on this roller coaster ride for years and years and years, it's harder to get off it. Do you know what I mean? Because you're kind of set in your old ways and you've habits formed, and you have, and I know young people do too, but when you get them at, I don't know, TY, when you get them at 18, 19, 20, they bounce back faster, and it's so important, I think, you know what I mean? I think that opportunity for young people is something that needs to be there. Yeah,
because when you consider the whole marriage thing, or as we say, cohabiting now or whatever, you go from a situation where you might be going out for romantic nights out and for meals and for dates and all of that kind of thing, to then being lumped together in the one space with this person all of a sudden, probably for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it's a huge jump, isn't it?
It's life changing, really, isn't it? Like it's like, I know we might live with our siblings or we might live with our parents, but it's different.
Yes.
Isn't it? Like, this person then wants to get to know you more, wants to be with you more. And if you ever in a relationship and there's a sense of neediness, you know that you need to look at it. Do you know that neediness when, oh my God, I'd die without him? Oh my God, know what I'd do if she left? Do you know that sense of that neediness? There's an issue.
Right.
That's a challenge we need to look at now, because we need to be two separate solid people, who have looked at their own stuff. And I know we'll be looking at it forever, so there's no, you're finished looking at it and then you can go. People who are willing to explore what's going on for themselves before they pass the buck. That's basically it. What is happening for me now before I go and blame you for my feelings? Because realistically, sure, how are you in charge of my feelings? You couldn't be. And I'm not in charge of yours. And that's the bottom line. We need to be two separate people. And I think that would be a wonderful TY course where you look at what's happening for me and what upsets me. And how is it now that upsets me? That's the route we went down already talking about. But wouldn't that be a beautiful way
Absolutely
for teenagers to have a look at? Because we know that there was a lot of influence by, I suppose, misogynistic people and all that, and there was a lot of teenagers followed them. But I think that's looking for identity. I think that's trying to find a way. I think that's because, I suppose, I think now with all the internet, and I hope to God that they ban it under 16s, but I think with all that kind of stuff coming at teenagers, it's just so confusing. Like, I was confused as a teenager, and the most I saw was Dallas or Dynasty, and that was through the door. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, like, it's just phenomenal what they have to look at now and make out what the world is going to look like for them.
Yeah, but if this kind of education was available to them, I mean, it would combat such heartbreak.
It would, yeah.
Misery.
Yeah. And to know that, what's happened to them doesn't need to, I suppose, frame their whole existence going forward.
And it doesn't define them.
It doesn't define them. Like, you are the author of your own book.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. But to be the author of your own book, you need to be conscious of what your own book has been so far.
Right. I'm just thinking when you quoted from the movie "You Complete Me," which is one of the most nauseating lines I've ever heard. But are you like that when you watch movies, though? You go, "Oh my God, will you listen to that?" Or are you able to suspend?
Able to watch them.
Are you able to suspend?
Oh no, I wouldn't. No, I know what I have a sense of what I know what's behind it, but I still go, "Oh yeah, look," I wouldn't be nauseated by it. One of my favourite movies of all time, and I still haven't figured out why I go back to it the whole time, is Pride and Prejudice.
All right.
It's one of my favourite books of all time.
Well, it's an amazing book, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more what's in it.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure that out for myself.
Yeah, but you see, some people would just read that and just on a shallow reading of it would be the whole romantic thing and all the tall, dark, handsome stranger and all of that.
Yeah, and I think it's more that courage stands out for me and loyalty. Yeah. That they would be the two words I'd take from that book. So it's strange what we all get out of it. We all get different things, but I don't even know why. Even like, say if I'm having a bad day or if something wasn't going great, or I might go and have an old read of a chapter, or I might look at it.
Is that great?
Yeah, so that would be my go-to book. It's weird.
Yeah, well, here am I going all macho on you, and still my go-to film is Casablanca. I would watch it 100 times. I don't know how many times I watched it, and it's the epitome of romantic old nonsense at times. But
and I would think that's beautiful.
It's just a gorgeous movie.
Yeah, and even like everything, Play It Again, Sam. It's just a lovely movie.
Of all the gin giants of all the towns in all the world and all of that. All right, Susan, pleasure as always. If people want to talk to you,
sure, it's 086 3676 256 or info@emotionalwellbeing.ie.
All right, and even if you want to call up Susan and give her your favourite quote from a movie, that would be fun.
Message me.
Thanks, Susan. Pleasure as always. Thank you. We'll take a break. Back with Paul.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
A great friend to the show, regular contributor Paul McCarthy, has done some number crunching relating to his domestic energy costs over the last few years, and has thrown up some very interesting figures indeed, and he joins me now. Paul, good morning to you.
Morning, Frank. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Great to talk to you as always. Will you set the scene for me, Paul? You had an old bungalow. It was oil heated, and you had a 2-litre diesel car.
Yeah. So we bought the house in the early 90s. It was a mid 70s standard bungalow out in the country, running on oil, and we had a diesel motor car to do the necessary getting in and out of town and what have you. And then over the years, we moved away from oil, and we are now completely electric. In other words, we don't use any oil for central heating. We don't use any oil for motoring. And I just monitored the costs over the 3 years, 23, 24 and 25, and looked at all the invoices and the bills and worked out whether I was ahead or behind in terms of cost. And
my apologies, Paul, but just for clarity for our listeners, so heat pump heating, solar panels, solar thermal panels, and an all-electric car.
Not all in one go, Frank.
Of course.
We started slowly, and we put in solar thermal, which heats hot water. Then I think we did the PV, the solar photovoltaic. Then we bought an electric car, and latterly we've moved to heat pumps. So this has all been spread out. So we don't use any oil, basically, and I've disassembled the old oil burner and taken it to the dump and got rid of the oil tank. So there's no going back. So each year on oil, the average spend was €4,325. But when we moved to all electric in 23, that dropped to €1,995. So each year on electricity alone for our energy, we are saving €2,330.
Wow.
Now, that's nearly half of the old oil cost. And I just thought it's kind of interesting. Now, I know I also sent in to you the bad news and the good news.
Yes, yeah.
Because the bad news is these things cost a lot of money.
Yeah, and can you give us an idea about some of those costs, Paul?
Yeah, I will. And I'm not... now, Fran, when I do something, I like to get the best... If I was to buy... I like to get equipment that's fit for purpose. I won't buy cheap, nasty. I'll look for a workmanlike, good standard. So I'm not saying these bits of kit were the cheapest on the market. In fact, I know they weren't. But they were the best quality I could find for the money. So good value for money. So the heat pump cost nearly €16,000, 15,800. There was a grant of €3,500. There is a grant of €3,500, but the guy came and it was impossible to get. It was a waste. It was a waste of his time and my time. He put up so many obstacles to it that I just thought, it's not going to happen. So I paid the full 15,800. The solar PV panels, the photovoltaic panels that provide electricity, were about 13,800. The full cost was 17 grand, but there was a grant that I got of nearly €4,000 on that.
And what was that grant easier? Obviously, it was easier to get than the one for the... Yeah.
I didn't. Actually, the installer got it. I didn't do it.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Now, the payback period on those costs, saving $2,300 a year, the PV panels, the payback will be 11 years. The heat pumps much longer, 20 years. But that all is dependent upon the relative cost of electricity and the relative cost of oil. And I honestly hope, I kind of know that oil is only going to go north, is only going to get more expensive. Where electricity goes is interesting, and it really depends on how quickly Ireland moves to install more renewable. And I'm hoping, it's probably a vain hope, Fran, that once we are pretty much fully renewable, electricity prices will become relatively inexpensive.
And Paul, when you say the PV panels would take 11 years to pay you back, would they last that long? Yeah. And the great thing about all this kit, the great thing about PV panels is there's no moving parts. You put them in, and again, this goes back to quality of the equipment installed. That's why I wanted good quality equipment. And you can forget about it. You know, if you have to pay €1,000 over the odds, what you think are over the odds to get that extra bit of quality, it's a bit like buying a bottle of wine. If you pay an extra euro for a bottle of wine, you're buying quality. Yeah, and when you've thought about this, then I guess you have a problem with the grants to begin with, have you? Yeah, I do, and I said that in the notes here. The good news is you save money. The bad news is that it costs you money to get there. Yes. So, what I would conclude from this experience that I've had over the last few years is that the first thing is moving to electricity is much cheaper than running on oil. That's a given. So the key ingredient of that is the installation of solar panels. I wouldn't have had the figures I've quoted to you about
the big savings on electricity if I hadn't got the solar panels, because the solar panels are a huge ingredient of the cost. Basically, the sun is shining on the panels on the house, and it's providing electricity for nothing.
Yes, yeah.
What's the thing? The grants are not nearly high enough to allow most people to retrofit. There are grants for very low-income families run by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, but for the average person, the grants aren't nearly enough. I mean, that 15,800 euros to install heat pumps came with a €3,500 grant, and that's stupid. That's ridiculous. It ought to be at least half, at least. So, and the government are not helping the average Irish householder reduce their costs by offering such paltry amounts of money.
And Paul, can you sell electricity? Are you in a position to sell electricity back to the grid?
And that yes, and I said that the PV panels are a key ingredient. Not only do they make electricity for me, I'll give you an example. We import from the grid about 5,000 units of electricity a year. But those panels I've got, they produce 5,000 units of electricity per year. So that's 10,000 units. But I don't need 10,000 units. So the excess in the summer that are being generated by the panels goes to the grid, and they pay you for it, Fran, but they pay 19 cents a unit. Now, you buy it at about 34 cents a unit from memory. So I would like to see that 19 cents go up at least to match what you buy it at, 34 cents, because after all, it's pure green, environmentally friendly electricity. It's high quality stuff.
And I mean, it's obviously where most of us want to go, Paul. Why are the government not helping? Because it is prohibitive for an awful lot of people out there, the cost. Why aren't they making it easier?
Well, I think, Fran, it's a very, very good question, and I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer it. But I would say we have been very, very slow. If you look at it's something to do with the political cycle. You had Seamus Healy on this morning saying we've got a budget excess. Why don't we spend it on this, that, and the other? What we need in this country, we need food, we need shelter, and we need energy. And we're doing very badly on all those three, Fran. We import 80% of our fruit and vegetables, and we've got cattle standing on our heads. We've got huge excess of cattle. For shelter, we need 44,000 new homes a year up to 2040, and we'll probably miss that by a country mile. And in energy, we could supply all our energy if we only got our finger out and went to the west coast of Ireland and started building floating wind turbine farms. The west coast of Ireland has wind speeds that are so great, they could power the whole country 7 to 8 times over, Frank. 7 to 8 times. So we don't need all that. We could export it. We could stop importing fossil fuels, generate our own electricity, and become independent. At the moment, we are very vulnerable to America. We were vulnerable to Russia for our gas and oil, and we saw what happened there. So now we've switched to the Americans, and I'm not sure we're any better with Trump at the helm, relying on the Americans for gas and oil. So that's a very dangerous position to be in when we could be doing all this for ourselves. We could.
But my understanding about that is the offshore option there, Paul, we left it too late to try and get into the market there, and the people, the expertise, this is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, the expertise needed for that is not immediately available. It'll be years down the line.
Well, no, because Money Point, which used to be a coal-burning station, has been decommissioned as a coal-burning station, and the ESB are in there right now, and the plans, the ESB ought to have a PR campaign, really, because they're better than most people paint them. The ESB have reconfigured Moneypoint to cope with huge floating wind farms off the west coast of Ireland. There is a problem with wind farms and the grid. I don't want to get too technical, but wind farms produce electricity that's difficult for the grid to regulate. If the grid has a bit of a wobble and you're all on wind power, it's difficult to alter. So the ESB have put this huge piece of kit in Moneypoint that fixes that. And, credit to them. But why has it taken so long, Frank? And I think it's taken so long because we've got a political cycle which is too short for people to cope with things 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line.
And a lot of people on with the same question. What happens to Paul when the ESB is out, when there's no electricity? Have you storage capacity there in some fashion?
I do. I've got two things. Well, I've got a 10 kilowatt hour battery. I've got a 73 kilowatt hour battery in the electric car. And I think we've been on before, Fran, when I've spoken about using the stored energy in the electric car to power the house.
Yes.
So I can run a cable from the car into the house. Now, I can't put huge loads on it, but it'll run all the lights in the house. You can see where you're going. I've also got a wood-burning stove, and I've got a shed full of timber that I haven't burned in 5 years, probably. But if I wouldn't freeze to death.
So you have options.
Yeah, Plan B, Frank.
Yeah,
and
of course.
What Ireland as a nation needs is Plan B and C. Why are we so vulnerable to starvation? Because if we couldn't import the fruit and veg, 80% of the fruit and veg, well, we couldn't survive on beef and milk. We need homes. You've covered that this morning with Liam Browne's contribution, which I thought was very interesting. And energy, why aren't we now producing all the electricity from wind farms and solar that we need? And it's partly the political cycle, and it's partly this archaic, mad planning system we have.
Paul, fascinating conversation. And thank you so much for number crunching for us there, Paul. Great to talk to you.
So the bottom line is, if you can afford it, you will be half the cost, the energy cost, running your home on electricity versus oil. Half the cost.
Great to talk to you, Paul. Thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you, Carmina Mahagut. We'll take a break, back in a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1800 938 007.
Now, glad to be joined by our sports editor, Paul Carroll, from our Nina studio. Good morning to you, Paul.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
Good to talk to you today. Sadly, we don't have as much time as we usually have to talk about sport, but we have to talk about that loss to Cork in the National Hurling League. Paul, a lot of talking points about that game.
Loads, Fran, yeah. Finished up 29 points to 22. Kind of a back and forth game in the first half. A lot of good scores from range, and both teams kind of hurling fairly well. And then just about a minute or two before half time, a bit of pushing and shoving started, and all 30 players jumped in there, and it was a bit, it was one of those things that you often hear commentators say, we never like to see this.
Yeah,
and usually we do like to see a bit of that, but it went on for about 4 or 5 minutes, which is what no one kind of wants to see. And after it all, Liam Gordon and his officials decided Jason Ford and Shane Barrett should get straight red cards. So then he blew it up for half time. So the second half was 14-14, and both teams kind of dropped an extra man back, and there's a lot of easy puck outs for both sides, just out to the corner back and working it up that way. And it all had a very much a challenge match almost kind of feel to that second half. But Tipp did hang in there. They got it back to 3 points, but Cork finished that little bit stronger to get the last 3 or 4 scores to win by 7. So it's the first loss of the year for Tipperary. But I don't think either Liam Cahill or Ben O'Connor are going to lose too much sleep over the game. And for Tipperary and for Cork, it's the end of 3 games in 3 weeks. So I'm sure they'll try their best to re-heal and reset after the week. But loads of talking points, Fran. Those red cards, you had Johnny Ryan's black card on the 17th minute, which the black card is for deliberate fouls that stop a goal scoring opportunity. That didn't really seem deliberate, so he was unfortunate there, Johnny Ryan. But good notes from Tipperary. Young Cathal O'Reilly, still only a teenager, under 20 this year and next year. He's played all 3 league games for Tipperary so far this year. Even got a point the other night in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, so it's a huge plus for him to be able to experience this level. 31,000 people there at 19 years of age was a big day for him.
Fantastic. So. Yeah, a lot of our listeners looking for your opinion, and in fact, when I said earlier you were coming on, we had a lot of text about it. What you made of the hostility, I suppose, and the booing and the like, was a lot to do with the fact that, it was a replay of the All-Ireland, and, you were in the cauldron that was Páirc Uí Chaoimh and the like. Did that play into it, Paul?
Yeah, I suppose you're not going to expect a guard of honour really from the supporters coming out or anything like that. But yes. Darren McCarthy was on the receiving end of most of the hostility.
Yeah.
When he was being introduced as a substitution on the PA, just boos rang out around Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And then when he was standing over the freeze he was taking, it was the same. So that's something that I certainly don't like to see, and I wouldn't like to see Tipperary supporters booing a Cork player coming onto the field. We're all GA people at the end of the day, and there is an element of the pantomime villain, and Darren McCarthy got sent off against Cork last year, and he scored 113 in the All-Ireland final against them, so a bit of booing that way. But while there is an element of pantomime to it too, there's probably an element of nastiness in some quarters as well. And that should be called out. I don't think that's what genuine hurling people want. For Darren McCarthy, he's a very level-headed young lad, and I'm sure it's water off a duck's back to him. But it's just something that I wouldn't like to see. And like it's happened in Tipperary games before. I'm not saying it's just Cork or anything like that, but booing the opposition or jeering and things like that, it's never something I enjoy, and Darren McCarthy was certainly on the receiving end of it there on Saturday night.
For sure. Liam Connell was his usual diplomatic, calm self afterwards, though.
Yeah, brilliant, isn't he? He just kind of played it down and just brushed it off really well. So, but Ben O'Connor, the Cork manager, is a kind of box office in terms of his post-match interviews. That strong Cork accent he has as well really adds to it, and he certainly gave his opinion about and a lot of things on the full-time whistle. So he's going to provide a lot of entertainment. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing for Cork, I'm not too sure, because they're probably going to be the headline story regardless of what their manager comes out and says. And he might add a bit of fuel to a fire. He might want to add fuel to with some of his comments, but I would certainly encourage him to stay going, because it's certainly great entertainment, and he's a great kind of hurling man. Anyway, we're going to get our entertainment out of him.
One of the other big sporting stories was Ireland's Six Nations campaign, off to a tough start, to say the least. A lot of critique about the team over the last couple of days.
Yeah, it was a shocking weekend for Irish rugby. Really, you had obviously the loss to France 36-14 was never really a game. Ireland got back into it in the second half, but that was after France had taken off nearly all their best players, or certainly some of them anyway, and Dupont and the likes. Then the Ireland A's were well beaten by England on Friday, and that's the kind of Ireland's second team against the England second team. Good note there was Brian Gleeson getting a try and getting one disallowed from Lockmore, and Diarmuid Barron come on as well. Then the Ireland under-20s were well bet as well during the weekend against France, 50-21. Lots of Tipperary involvement there. Billy Hayes from Roscrea, Joe Finn from Ballina, Tom Wood, of course, from
Tip FM has been informed of them.
After pressing a button there, I shouldn't have, Fran. I'm not sure if that came through on your end.
It did, but it added to the atmosphere of it, Paul. No problem. It's interesting. And is it the style of rugby that we're playing, or is it down to...
I think one of the big things, Fran, is Ireland won the under-20s Six Nations in 2023. Brian Gleeson was on that team, and they beat France to win the Grand Slam. And Sam Prendergast and Gus McCarthy are the only two players that have played senior for Ireland since then, whereas for France they have 5 or 6 lads from that team of 3 years ago that are mainstays in the French team, no more so than Louis Bielbiere, who's just a try-scoring machine and got 2 against Ireland. So that is an issue. Ireland's team is ageing, and the time is nearly coming now to just not just throw in the young lads, but really start developing and looking to the future. There's a lot of good, talented underage players there throughout Munster and Leinster and Connacht and Ulster as well, but it's just about getting these lads game time, because the World Cup is coming around next year, and if you have an ageing team like we do now, you could be at a thing called nothing.
And management, Paul, is that...
Yeah, Andy Farrell has done really well when he's been with Ireland. They're going to be in for a bit of criticism given the how they played against France. And just the game plan, it was very much, we'll kick it and we'll hope that they'll drop it, really. We'll boot it down the field and hope that they make a mistake in the difficult conditions, or we'll try and contest it in the air. But we didn't win anything in the air. So you kind of felt like there had to be some sort of plan B. One thing that always I'm really jealous of watching France is they have so much flair players where if a ball breaks to a lad out in the wing, he just has that little bit of X factor to make something happen, where Ireland are almost regimented in terms of their play style, and just I don't want to oversimplify it, but just by booting it long a lot of the time, it's not. And
is that because, I mean, as you know, this ain't my thing, Paul, but is that because of available talent, or is it about ethos or something? Is it
more so ethos, I'd say, because you do see other teams with maybe quote unquote less talent who still play that kind of brand of rugby, whether it's good or bad. So it's been successful for Ireland down through the years, that up and under and box kicking, and it's a big part of rugby now. And France made a lot of kicks as well last week. I think they box kicked it just as much as Ireland on Thursday evening. But when it goes wrong, it just doesn't look good. You're kicking the ball away, you're down, you're down in the game with 20 minutes to go. You kind of need to make something happen through the hands, and you're just booting the ball away to the other team. So it's something that you'd like to see Ireland maybe develop. And but there was some good things as well, like Ireland's set pieces, lineouts and all that actually were really good, which is something we've struggled with in recent times. So maybe it's just France are really good and we're in a bit of a transitional period at the minute. But time will tell on that. For sure. I only have a little while left. But in terms of what we should look forward to in the coming week or so, Paul? Yeah, and just want to mention the Clonmel High School on Saturday, Fran, an unbelievable... nearly an unbelievable comeback against Tralee CBS, down 12 points at the start of the second half, had it back to 3 points in the Munster Under-19A football final, and were beaten for a finish 219 to 113. So that was a tough defeat, but they really put up a good show, Clonmel High School in Mallow on Saturday. But looking ahead, Fran, darts, Nina, Stephen Rosney in action today, tomorrow and Wednesday on the PDC Pro Tour. So his first Players' Championship action. We've the Fitzgibbon Cup final, loads of Tipperary involvement there. The Sigerson Cup final, UL have an awful lot of Tipperary players. That's on Wednesday, the Fitzgibbon Cup final, with Tip players on both sides of the teams, UL and Mary I, on Friday evening. The Tip footballers are back next Sunday against Carlow. The Tip Camogie team are back next Saturday up in Antrim, first game under new manager James Heffernan, and Abbey CBS are in the Munster B schools football final. That's on Friday. So as always, Fran, particularly around this time of year, loads to look forward to when it comes to sport in Tipperary. Great stuff, Paul. Thanks very much for that. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, good morning. Good morning to you. That's our sports editor Paul Carroll from our Nina desk this morning. And of course, don't forget tonight after 7 o'clock, extra time with all of the sporting detail with Ronan and the team there. And that's it for me. Leanne produced, Ali looks after content, Stephen has the time tunnel on the lunchtime show, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Do look after yourselves, won't you? Bye bye.
Tip FM's Tip Today
with Slattery's Garage, Puck On, main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County, and now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.